Friday, May 30th, 9 a.m. The last meeting of the Benton County Budget Committee. Hopefully. For this year. For introductions.
Nancy Wise, Commissioner.
Pat Malone, Commissioner.
Rachel McEnany, County Administrator.
Rick Krieger, Assistant County Administrator.
Cody Hall, I'm a citizen member.
Gabe Shepherd, Commissioner.
Curtis Wright, citizen member.
Mariah De La Vega, VOC staff.
Chaz,
Uh,
citizen.
Right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
And Chaz is here, yeah.
Is Gabe here? I'm
Chaz,
Chad.
yes.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Chaz Jones, citizen member.
Thank you, Chaz. Mr. Krieger.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thanks for all the work that you all have been doing the last 2 days. I know it's been a busy week, and we have reached the final day. And just as a quick recap for you, we have completed all of the departmental presentations, 15 of them, and we have one presentation left today that is non-departmental. So this one's going to be different than anything we've seen so far because it's going to be a whole bunch of things that are not necessarily tied to a specific department. Typically, these are going to be things that are managed by some cases finance, in some cases the Board of Commissioners office, in some cases the Board of Commissioners. So so this one will be a little bit different than what we have seen in the past. So our plan is for about an hour to finish that up. I think, we might be able to get through it quicker than that. We'll see. And then we have our last public hearing, one of the last of 3 at 10 o'clock. And then we move into deliberations and move towards hopefully a approval of the proposed budget so that we move into the next stage of the process. So with that, I'll have Mariah go ahead and pull up the presentation. You should have the packet in front of you. So, like I said, this one's a little different than what you've seen in the past. I'm going to kind of start at a very, very high level and talk numbers. I'm not going to get into a lot of these increases and decreases like I have in others, because again, this one is a little bit different. I'll talk through the categories first. So fund administration, this is essentially where we administer all of the resources for the general fund and the levy, or basically all the general fund. And what you'll see mostly there, it's where the contingency exists, reserves, if you will. The way we move in our accounting, all of the general fund comes into one place, and then we manage it in one place, which is the fund administration. And then ultimately, we ensure, and we as in the financial department ensures that it stays, there's sufficient resources to be able to manage all of the budgets that we have. And of course, we keep our eye very, very closely these days on the contingency and reserves, which is a big part of this budget proposal, ensuring that we have prudent levels of reserves going forward. The American Rescue Plan Act is on its way out. It will finish up in April 26th, but we'll talk a little bit about that. We have several programs that are in community and economic development, grants, different types of areas that we allocate dollars. The Building Development Fund is by far the biggest that you'll see in this budget. And I think, as you can imagine, this is where the courthouse, district attorneys, the Emergency Operations Center, that's where that exists. That's their primaries. And obviously, this will likely, hopefully, if everything goes well, be zero next biennium, because ultimately we will have completed those projects and it will become an asset. Capital Improvement Program, CIP, as we often call it. If you hear me saying that, we have typically made allocations from the general fund specifically to support small capital projects. We talked last night, as you might remember, with NAPE. They had 7, 8 different types of projects, and we had mentioned to you that's probably a better candidate for CIP. We are, as you can see, not allocating or recommending as much. It's been $3 million in the past, but part of that is Again, we've got a lot of other projects, facility projects that we're working on right now, but we do feel like there are going to be some emergency areas and priority projects that we should at least be recognizing. And then, of course, we have other programs and services, trust funds. Again, this is a grouping and we'll go through the details of this. I'm not going to necessarily spend a whole lot of time in terms of the percentage changes. And I think you'll see as we start to go through the slides why I'm not going to get real specific. So quick, when you look at this particular budget and where does the money come from, you can see it's obviously big, $117.6 million. The 32.9 that you see there is in relation to general fund, local option levy money that flows through. We have the county school fund money dedicated, money that we collect that is dedicated specifically to the county school fund. It's a pass-through in and out, sort of like our service districts. American Rescue Plan Act obviously is leftover dollars. We have a special grant fund. These are, again, when you have various targeted specific grants, we use that fund to account for those revenues. The Forest Payment Title III Fund, for those that have been around a while, they've probably seen that in the past. It was a small leftover. Congratulations, we finally finished that fund and that has been zeroed out. We were able to get those monies allocated this biennium as we had planned. So I know that had been carried over for some time. And then finally, the General Capital Improvement Fund is the $1 million that I spoke of. We have a standalone account that we have a small committee internally that includes Commissioner Malone. And then, of course, all approvals go through the Board of Commissioners for projects. The big one is the Building Development Reserve Fund. This is the fund that we use when we have big capital projects. All the money goes into it so that we can do the work, and then ultimately it becomes an asset for the county. And then we have a small portion of Management Service Fund that you will see is essentially just reserve money and trust fund dollars. So again, this particular non-departmental budget is a little different because it's just got so many different types of things. So we'll start with fund administration. And again, as I mentioned, this is where we handle a lot of the ins and outs of dollars and transfers. But basically, the fund administration is used to manage the general fund, the local option levy, the management fund, service fund transfers, and all of our unrestricted reserves. Within this budget, some of the budget adjustments that we are making is about a net $1.91 million increase. Some of these things, again, you have heard already, so now you're just starting to see the accounting. So the elimination of the $1.58 million general fund transfer to the community health center, talked about that. That's accounted for here. We have a one-time reduction of a $2.4 million transfer to debt service. I think you also have heard me talk about this. We've been fortunate enough to earn some good interest in our capital development fund, more than we anticipated. So we have the ability to use that money to pay the debt service and save the general fund money for one time. But again, that is a one-time situation, and we're fortunate enough to have it, but it will, as you go into the next biennium, come back to as a general fund transfer to pay debt service. We've also talked about how when we started down this road of current service level, we talked about the deficit that we were in. We also talked about it would also leave a pretty minimal amount of reserves. So as part of our proposal is to try to get that unrestricted reserves back up is the leveraging of existing assets. So that's where this $6 million additional one-time leveraging of those assets, that is going to require a lot of work and efforts in planning. As we've all talked about, we are at a place where buildings are getting completed. We have new facilities. We do have an opportunity to start offloading some of these or leveraging those for other purposes. We need to do that. We've made a lot of investments over the last 4 or 5 years, and now we're going to try to recoup some of those investments using those assets. And then finally, this is just a small decrease of expenditures from savings. You've heard this over and over through the last 2 years, probably sick of it, but savings from internal department reductions. This particular non-departmental also benefits from that. So what I've attempted to do is just sort of give you a little bit of, how this budget kind of all breaks down, what it means to this total $30.3 million of proposed, and that's where you look to the right. So you see the total amount of transfers that are estimated at 17.7 million. Again, these are transfers that we do out of the general fund and either to other places within other types of funds that are budgeted throughout. We also have unrestricted reserves, which we are suggesting at $10.3 million. These are unrestricted. So again, this is the key that I mentioned before that we're trying to build back, and it gets us up to closer to 12%, but not 12%. So I'm going to keep saying that is that it's a decent level. We've been at 12% level. That's where I'd like to be, of course, but 10.3, we've all known that, some of the investments that we made would require us to maybe look at a smaller percentage of unrestricted reserves.
It's in the 10% range.
10 point, I'll have to go back and look at my specific number, but approximately 10.5%. So, and then finally, there's just a small administrative costs is that we have to pay 1.16 is again, we have to pay central cost allocation. That's the cost for the non-departmental. One thing I should point out, you may be wondering, is what is state court space charges? We, by law, are required to provide the space for our state courts. And that's what we pay. And the general fund is the portion that has to pay for it. So it's essentially that cost. Again, is what it is. And that's just a requirement of the law. So all in all, 28.4 million current service level. What we are proposing in this is a $30.3 million. Next is the American Rescue Plan Act. As I mentioned, this started back in 2021. I think it was the spring of 2021 when we first got our allocation of a little over $16 million. This has been quite a journey in terms of the use of that. I know Jeremy, who's sitting behind me, he has been the mastermind for several years in terms of working directly with that. And then prior to that, I had worked quite a bit in terms of the allocation of those dollars. And so this is the wrap up. This is what's left for us. And we have to spend all of this by December 31st, 2026. If we don't, we send it back. I can assure you, and I'm sure Jeremy would agree with this, everything is obligated. We've met all of our obligation requirements, which was to have everything obligated at the end of this last calendar year, 12/31/24. And so what you see on the right is basically what we are forecasting left to be spent on this. I'll kind of quickly hit on some of the highlights, certainly willing to dive into any of these categories you left. We have a little bit of administrative dollars that we have in this budget. You heard me talk about a fund shift in the financial services department to pay for the grant manager's salary. That's essentially what that is. We are projecting about $1.3 million left for our emergency operations center. You might remember we allocated 2.5, so this is the balance of what we think we're going to spend for the construction of the emergency operations center. We have a water infrastructure, and actually this says water, but it was a water sewer. And so we finished up the water portion of the upgrades for many of our service districts using ARPA dollars. But then we got a federal grant that was specifically for the sewer. So we're still going to use a little bit of the 282 combined with our federal money once that all kind of comes through to finish the sewer upgrades for our service districts. Benton County Courthouse DA's office. This is, and if it means what, there's eligible categories for American Rescue Act, and then there is what they call kind of the more discretionary. You might, for those that remember ARPA, we had up to $10 million of sort of discretionary. This is a portion of that, which we dedicated 2 years ago as part of our courthouse solution. 1.9 million of American Rescue Act is going for the courthouse construction. So again, this will be spent out of here. The transfer to the general fund, you heard Tammy Tracy talk about the assessment system that wasn't completed this biennium. Obviously, we're just carrying this over because we did allocate that from ARPA last time. So this money would be, again, reinstated to finish the new assessment system that Tammy Tracy had talked about. And then the last piece there, that transfer to general fund administration, I just want to note that as we talked about one-time revenues to help fill the hole. We talked about the insurance transfer dollars. I talked about the workers' comp transfer. And then the last one-time revenue is interest earnings on ARPA. So again, interest earnings on ARPA free and clear in terms of use per the rules and regulations. So we're basically clearing this out. This is interest earnings that we have that had not been obligated. We're recommending that, again, this is a resource that can go and at least help for next biennium in terms of balancing the general fund budget. So ultimately, it's about a $4.6 million proposed budget for the American Rescue Plan Act. The small piece that you see for the policy option package is basically just, again, some kind of technical through some of the different policy package allocations. There was a savings that was in American Rescue Plan. So that was just a relatively small, call it more of a technical adjustment. Okay. Community and economic development. So this one's going to be, this is the one that starts to kind of get a little, we're going to have different resources, different types of processes. So I'll do my best to walk through this. And there's a couple of notes that are going to really help us to think about our deliberations discussion that we're going to need to solve for. Veteran services. We have $696,000 budgeted for the next biennium. This is what we have traditionally for veteran services. We contracted out with the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments to administer veteran services. It includes $245,000 of money that comes from the state that we basically are a pass through, and then the balance of that is general fund. So that's how we have chosen over the years to manage our veteran services responsibility. I know that at times there's been some discussions prior to me, and so either Commissioner Malone or Commissioner Wise may have some more background on this, on should this be something we consider to do in-house. I think, we would obviously have to staff up. My take is that, I think the program is run pretty well. It is being administered by April Holland and the health department now in terms of responsibility. So she provides the oversight. That was a change that we made last biennium where we had some of these things that were essentially assigned to the Board of Commissioners office, but we needed actually someone kind of doing the oversight day to day. So we did assign that to April. So that's number one. Number two, I've asked you probably put an asterisk by this, the economic development services. So I think you're all aware that we contracted City of Corvallis for the economic development office. We use lottery money that comes from the state to fund that. Lottery money is somewhat flexible. I think, the statutes, if you read it, basically says the purpose of the money that is given to counties is further economic activity and community development. That's the best way to say it. And if you went through the statute, you'd find a whole host of things that you can do with these dollars. Obviously, this money is appropriately placed. But the City of Corvallis has a proposed contract, and they've been working with our county administrator on this as well. We've had two contracts where we're kind of exchanging money. We have agreed, like with our Coordinated Homeless Response Office, or better, prior to that known as HOPE, to be able to pay for a portion of a position. We pay for a portion, they pay for a portion. And then we have the Economic Development Office where we pay for a portion and they pay for a portion. What has been proposed to us contractually is that let's not do this money back and forth exchange. You pay for the position for the Crow, essentially, and we'll pay for the Economic Development Office. Now, we'll still have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding in terms of how that needs, what our expectations are. But that's a proposed contract change that's kind of come up here within the last 30 days. I do have that on my desk to finish review. I think from the discussion with the county administrator, I think we believe that this is appropriate so long as we're very clear on the language and that we're getting the benefit, the Board of Commissioners is getting the benefit of the Economic Development Office. Nothing should change. It's just how it's paid for. I say all of this because this 483 is in our budget right now to pay them, which means if we don't, that $483,000 is available. So now the other thing is you may be saying, well, Rick, what about the position? We have to pay for all of that now, and that I agree. But if you look at the Coordinated Homeless Response Office budget in its entirety, it has a contingency of about $180,000. Therefore, that cost can be absorbed within those monies. I talked to April about that and I think she's comfortable. So essentially what it would mean is we could cover that cost through a budget, a cost neutral budget shift. And this money would then be available for something. Yes, ma'am.
And do we pay 50% of, we just give all this money to economic development, the 483,000?
That's what we were giving.
And how, do you know how much the city of Corvallis pays into it? I wonder if it's a wash, because I know they only were paying 40% of the.
Yeah, it's certainly not a wash. We pay a lot more, and so from a financial standpoint, we get more money back. We pay a bigger share
That's kind of what I
right
was thinking.
now. So basically of this 483, that it does include some contingency. I'm going to give you an approximate number of about 350,000 is what we're paying. What they're paying us is roughly about $130,000 for the position. So we
The
get our,
economic development decision,
what's that?
the economic development decision.
Not economic.
You meant Julie's position.
Julie's position, I'm sorry.
So you said we have 180,000 in contingencies,
Yes.
and that's would be for the biennium, so for both years.
Yeah, so we would basically, what I would suggest to you and what I'm confirming with April is that we would reduce that contingency to approximately I'm just giving you approximate numbers right now, but $50,000 so that we could use the resources that are available in Crow to pay for that position, Julie Arena's position, let's just say it. That would cover that. And then we would no longer have an obligation to pay this money to the economic
So
development.
what would we do next biennium for Julie's position?
With the grant.
I think that's where the Crow comes in and part of how do you continue to grow that office and be able to, I mean, the expectation is resources are going to continue to flow. Part of this is also the flex spending pool that you've heard about is how does that start showing return and benefits? I'm not going to tell you, hey, commissioner wise, there's a perfect answer for that, but I think that's what the Crow is demonstrating is it's growing. And we would continue that growth. You look like you're gonna ask a question, so
I do have questions, but I'm debating on saving them to the end.
we can wait if you want to.
Yeah.
So I just want you to put a pin on that because basically if we do this, which I think again, both Rachel and I believe this, you know, is appropriate action. And I think it does create a lot of efficiency with the city of Corvallis. I mean, again, we have to make sure we're still getting what we need. That leaves us with a pot of dollars to further economic activity and community development.
But do we have to adopt the budget like this because we haven't done that other contract yet and then make a change after?
You could just wait. I mean, so you have an option. Oh, boy,
I don't think it has to go.
it doesn't. We could do it now. We can do it like, we can wait until we actually sign that contract. It's just because you may have things you want to do. Now, this is a potential opportunity. I have a thought about that. I will share with you when you're ready, but it gives you some flexibility when you're trying to make decisions now about reductions.
Mhm.
So, but I can go either way. I mean, we can change it. But I mean, what that means is later on, you kind of kick the can down the road. You're going to have available resources down the road to think about what to do then. So that'll be a decision point for you. It's the reason I want you to put asterisks by it. I just need you to know that that is what is in play at this point. Certainly we can deal with it now or later.
City is done with their budget committee, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, the council hasn't passed it yet, but the city,
Okay.
their budget committee.
Thank you. Do we know what they put in their budgets for this?
I need to check specifically with James on this, and I will follow up commissioner wise, but my understanding based on the conversations is they move forward anticipating this being, those contracts being executed, but I'll need to validate that for you.
We can look that up online.
I'll call James and had a break.
Seems better than control F on that budget document to try and find that position.
Right.
And if I might take a quick pause, I think Debbie Sessions is online and listening. And Debbie, if you're listening, I would ask maybe if you wouldn't mind calling James Askew, James Inglis, to check and see if in the city of Corvallis's budget, they are anticipating what we're talking about here today. Basically, the execution of the contract. Debbie, does that make sense?
Yep, it sure does. I'll get on it.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you,
Thank
Debbie.
you.
I just want to make sure we're not putting the cart in front of the horse, like that we're
Understood.
making decisions based on a contract that hasn't actually,
Great,
doesn't exist yet, or
great point.
isn't signed, et cetera.
Yeah,
But Rick, the idea is no change in the services. It's just cleaning up how the payment flows.
correct.
Or that's the.
Services won't change. I mean, the expectations won't change. The money flow will change, and because the money flow will change, it affords an opportunity for you to look at. And Debbie, if you're still listening, I would suggest you call Paul Bellotta as opposed to James, because he initiated the contract to April and I and asked the question, is this anticipated in their budget?
I think, so this is more of a board of commissioners conversation, but I just want to make sure that, there's something to be said for both parties having skin in the game for both of these positions.
Yeah,
And I just don't want to lose, the city of Corvallis' interest or them providing for our interest in economic development.
absolutely.
If it doesn't work, you can always say, aren't we on sign?
I don't think that's true.
I used to have clients that said that.
Really,
Yeah.
that's funny.
And I will say, to the Board of Commissioners, but to everybody, if let's say we kick this down into a supplement into the future, based on the recommendation I would make to you, I don't think it would hurt your flexibility too much. I mean, just to tell you, I think the way you would want to allocate this money based on the characteristics of the law and the best, just again, there's a lot of different approaches, but I think you put it in CIP. The reason is because the law talks about specific types of projects that you can use lottery funds for, and many of those are county county municipality improvements. So that's my interpretation. That would be the best use of those dollars. What that does for you in CIP is either you grow it more, your choice, or you keep it as it is and save yourself general fund money.
And save.
Save yourself general fund money. Yeah. And that would be a choice.
Okay. I want to get into this now or at the, I mean, we're on the topic, if I may.
Sure.
Okay, so this 483,000.
Yep.
How much of it is contract money versus salary money? Is it all salary?
It's all contract.
All
Right now-
contract.
Right now, it's all contract. It's based, well, there's another part I'm going to talk about here shortly.
Okay,
That is also contract/grant. But right now, for the portion I'm talking about here, approximately 350 is a contract with the city of Corvallis. The rest of it's contingency.
okay, because my concern is that they're still gonna want money if for a contract, right? Or is it just an like for an MOU, they're not gonna charge us anything?
We'll have an MOU in terms of what our expectations are to get from the Economic Development Office. Basically, our expectations, like Commissioner Wise said, is we still want to have the same level of relationship and involvement in economic development. What we're saying is they'll pay for that.
Okay, so I mean, what I had in my head was that, okay, we were gonna fork over, or we we're gonna stop giving them money for the salary, but we'd still have to pay them something for contract at all, but it's there's,
Biannual, yeah.
okay, so
Our
there's,
only relationship right now with them is we pay them 350 and then they pay us 130 for the position.
okay, yeah, I mean, that does, it sounds like it's a good deal for us. I wonder why they want to change, yeah.
Maybe the administrative.
The administrative burden of it, but I'm, I'm happy to go with this and I'm interested in your shifting things around, but I do share a little bit of Commissioner Wise's concern of like, if we're not paying into it, what's to stop the city at some point of just like, yeah, we want to cancel this, figure out economic development for Monroe on your own, like,
Which
Yes,
may
that'd be
be,
the MOU, right?
but
yeah, which may be good reason, as Commissioner Wise said, to maybe wait. So that until we finalize that agreement so that you all, because ultimately you have to prove it, basically making sure that you're getting the kind of, they're meeting the expectations, because you could look at it and say, well, wait a minute, we're not getting what we've paid for in the past. We'd rather keep paying for it.
How do you measure that? How do you measure that you're getting what you expected?
Well,
Frequently, they come to us to work on
Okay,
work and they liaison a lot with community development on a project outside the city of Corvallis, for example, and they'll work on it. And they do, presently it's Christopher Jacobson. He presents up quarterly to the board on several different avenues and directions of where we're going. So
I can see us needing to be active in those discussions and is there a percent, does Benton County get 40% of or 30% of Christopher Jacobs' time?
so again, that will be the key. The key is,
Currently.
currently, I'll be honest with you, that agreement is pretty vague. I'll be honest, and I think
it's been difficult. to get them
previous
here.
commission, I know Commissioner Ojero had always some concerns related to what we got for what we paid. So I think that's I think that it's really key to make sure those words are right in the MOU and that there's strong understanding. I can't, to your question, what percentage do we get? It's not defined that way.
I think it's fluctuated over the years too, depending on frankly, who has been in the office and what their staffing level is. And Kate Portia came, I think she did a great job compared to her. Anyway, she did a great job,
Mhm.
and then it was open for a long time, and so that was frustration with the county.
Mhm.
I had, and then I think Christopher Jacobs is doing an excellent job.
Well, and I think in some respects, the MOU is half the battle, but the other half is the relationship we have with the individual that's in that position and making sure that our expectations and
Want
are met.
to call the committee's attention to 25 minutes to public hearing.
So I will,
Sorry, so our public hearing is set for
10.
10, but it can happen at 10 or anytime after, is that correct?
per the posting, we said at, I think at 10 or at the end of. I think I left flexibility on that. But we could always pause to take public hearing and then come back, whatever you prefer. And I can also try to go fast. No, that's okay. No. And this is, you kind of got to start on deliberations, which is important because this is a note. Let me pivot back and let's stay in the spirit of lottery money and move to the next item, which is the Benton Historical Society. There's a lot of history here with this that I won't, unless you want me to go through, but we did make a shift again after our analysis of the lottery monies and what's eligible. We did shift to pay what has been a traditional grant to the Benton Historical Society. We are proposing that to continue with lottery funds. We have been assured it meets the intent. We reported out on that. Again, there's some history behind all of this that goes way back into 2000 in terms of this used to have its own specific set of monies that was dedicated, and the county has continued to keep that. Now we are proposing that it will remain flat in terms of what we have proposed at $500,000. That's what we're doing right now. And that would continue to come from the Benton Historical Society. And I believe Jessica is here, and I know could be available for any questions if you did have any in relation to the use of that money. But again, our budget proposes to continue that relationship. The Agriculture and Wildlife Protection Program is $67,475. This is general fund discretionary money that we have allocated traditionally to the public works for areas where we have experienced conflicts with wildlife. You heard from Public Works that we are recommending an increase of $20,000 for that. So that is being proposed in this budget. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Agriculture and Wildlife Protection Program would be flat. $67,475 would be maintained at that, and would continue to provide that direct work that Public Works takes care of for the county. The next one is the Agriculture and Wildlife Protection Program that's at, the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, which is $92,839, and that's where the $20,000 additional increase is recommended. I do want to make a note that per our recommendation, we would use other funds for that $20,000 increase from what is called the Benton County Opportunity Fund. These are federalized monies and returns of loans that have been provided that kind of get recycled, and we have traditionally used that for special type projects. So that is
Versus general fund.
correct. So it was requested as general fund. We worked together to say, hey, we could use this resources, which is a good segue into the next piece. Community grants, $174,300. The county has traditionally done, this has been at the discretion of the Board of Commissioners and approval of process, and where there are a variety of different grants, I call them community grants. The examples include, we have given dollars to the Oregon Water Resources Department, part of the Water Master program. We have given Meals on Wheels dollars. That has been a traditional grant. We have given $10,000 grants to the city of Philomath, the city of Monroe, and the city of Adair Village for what we have called sort of community development, economic development grants, primarily funded, at least in the past, by TLT dollars. Again, there would be sufficient resources in the Benton Opportunity Fund to do all of that. So this is a strategy that we came up with to try to save the general fund some money, to shift it to this available Benton Opportunity Fund. I think it's a good use of resources. It's available dollars. It's free and clear dollars. It's meant to be used to support and help the community. My recommendation, though, and this is a little different, I think in the past, the Board of Commissioners, and this will be similar to CIP, has sort of made those decisions up front. This would be set aside to say it would be at the discretion of the Board of Commissioners, and then we could administer a process, a application process for the Board of Commissioners to oversee. So the money would be at 174,300, and then we would take application from these organizations that I meant for them to make decisions in relation. I would highly recommend this because I feel like that this process has been a little non-transparent in the past, and it would give you the opportunity to be able to give opportunities for all of Benton County. So that is a recommendation, but it would be at 174,300. So if the Board of Commissioners wishes, they can continue to give those grants like they always have. But that will be their decision to make. Yes, ma'am.
Question on that. So would we require then the cities of Philomath, Monroe, and Adair Village to apply for their?
You traditionally didn't. We did move last time to actually put agreements in place. So we made some progress the last 2 years to actually have an agreement, but that would be your call.
Okay,
I
I
would
just
be
don't
wor-
want it to turn into, they've had this funding for so long. And I don't think Philomath, but definitely Monroe and maybe Adair Village do sort of rely on it a little bit more.
Mhm.
To then have the, oh, sorry, you applied, but you didn't get it this year.
Yeah.
I don't want to run into that. I would like to continue to fund them.
Yeah, what I would propose is if this is adopted, if this community grant philosophy is continued to be adopted by, or approved by this committee, adopted by the Board of Commissioners, I think shortly after the biennium starts, we need to come and get direction from the governing body on exactly how you wish to move forward with this. You have that discretion in terms of allocating, or you can make a process, whatever you prefer. And you may have a hybrid. You may say, well, I want to do this over here and I want to do that over there.
Okay, it's 10,000 for each city?
Yeah.
Okay, I think in the past even it was 5,000, and so I think it was for the administrative burden for $5,000, $15,000, I think.
5,000 a year.
Yeah, I think that's what we moved to this last year, 5,000 a year, so 10,000 for a biennium.
I think that was just staff was like, are we doing all this work for that small? But I do agree that having a sort of a process is good.
For everybody else.
And it gives you time to be thought.
Yeah.
It gives you time to be thoughtful. I mean, the issues and challenges I had as your former CFO with this particular process, you were making decisions in November on these things before the budget even started in July, but circumstances changed. So this, I guess, affords you that opportunity to say, okay, this is how we wish. You may say, I want to take half of it right now and put this out and think about the other half next year. But in the past, it just sort of locked you in for the next 2.5 years because you were making decisions so early. So I'm proposing same philosophy, still budget, still approve it, but give more discretion to how you wish for that process to work.
I'm just a little, I don't want to say fearful, but I've sat at these tables and heard us say, yes, we're gonna do this. We're gonna take ARPA money and fund 3 years in a row. And then later on, budgets are tight and we go, nope, just kidding. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna do this. And so I don't want to get into a situation where that's
Sure.
gonna happen again, because that was not a good feeling for me.
Yeah, understand. And I guess, again, I would say that's why I believe this affords you a little bit more opportunity, because what I'm saying is you're not making those commitments right now. What you're saying is I'm making a commitment to community grants, but I'm not locking myself into any kind of agreement until I go through and actually evaluate that. As we all know, unfortunately, circumstances do change sometimes. I know exactly what you're speaking of in terms of the ARPA, and that was very unfortunate. I think the one thing to give you any assurance that this money is right there, it is locked in, and it's your discretion in terms of how you wish to move forward. Gives you more flexibility, I think.
Thank you.
I like this approach and to be able to respond to changing circumstances. But have a process in place for organizations applying for the money, and then we have the opportunity to prioritize our investments.
So, committee, the last line here is just a small amount of administration central cost allocation that we pay. So it's $11,000. Again, this is part of our allocation process. The proposal is a $2.02 million. Again, we'll put a pin in the economic development piece to be part of our discussion. Good news is this is the most complicated part of this particular section. The next one should be pretty easy. Mr. Chairman, I'll do my best to keep you on track for your 10 o'clock. I'm going to flip to capital projects. So this is a big number, but pretty straightforward. There are $77.4 million in our proposed budget. So these numbers that you see, just so that people don't get confused or anybody that's looking at the public, this is budgeted how much we expect to spend. This isn't total project cost. This is what we've already spent, in the case of the Benton County Courthouse, we've already spent, it's an $86 million project. So basically do the math, we have spent, $27 million of that to date. So basically, this is what we anticipate to be the balance to spend out next biennium. This is all secured funding. This is funded by tax exempt debt that we issued. It's funded by monies that come from the Oregon Judicial Department as part of their portion of the cost. So it is a fully funded project. The same is true for the next one, the Benton County Emergency Operations Center. That's 7.5 is what we expect to spend. That is fully funded. Lottery bank bonds were just issued. So money is in the bank with the state. It's just a matter of reimbursement. As I already talked about, there's a portion that comes from ARPA in relation to that. So it's a transfer from ARPA to capital projects to be able to pay for that. You just saw that a moment ago. So everything is secure. The last one, this is the Monroe Health Center replacement project. This 759 I have placed in contingency because this is a project that is moving forward, but it is a project that is not fully funded yet. So we are moving to stages in this. The 759 represents money that is remaining from our grant for our facility or our efforts around children and families and health support services. The law gave us flexibility once we had completed the Barbara Ross acquisition and remodel. Any money that was left could be used and the target had always been Monroe Health Center. So this is the amount that's left there. So this is basically, I'm only putting in contingency. I'm not allocating it yet because I think we still have some work to do to get this fully funded. There is a federal grant that has been awarded, $1 million federal grant that is baked into the community health center budget, but that too is still subject to federal changes and we haven't got that fully locked in. We also have a request outstanding with Congress on this particular project. So there's still some work that needs to be done to get this fully funded. Hence my reason for just putting in a contingency, but that is the purpose of the dollars. And then finally, the $1 million for capital improvement program. I've talked about that already. We're recommending a $1 million as opposed to $3 million. So the capital improvement program, again, has traditionally been a set aside of discretionary general fund resources. It enables departments to make requests. It's usually, I should say, it's mostly been NAPE and Public Works that make these requests. But we've had law enforcement in the past on some of the renovation needs. We've had some vehicles in the past, unexpected things. But and then there's a committee that is established internally, includes Commissioner Malone, to review all applications and then make a recommendation to the board for approval. So that's how we've administered the $3 million in the past. Obviously, it's less than what we have seen, but I also think we're in a place where now a lot of those investments in the past, because of agency and deferred maintenance issues on older facilities, as you start to get newer facilities, obviously you're not, it's kind of like our discussion on vehicles, right? You're going to be paying more. The older it gets, the more you pay. And hopefully we can see less need for capital improvement. So we're going to have to manage this. I'm not going to say it's easy, but you saw yesterday from Jesse, there was some good projects in there. I'm sure all of you would be interested in. So, so I certainly think there will be a need. Again, we did this way the last time, is that we administered the application process within the biennium. So we set aside the money and then we went through a process and took it before the Board of Commissioners. I definitely think there's enough demand there to use up the $1 million. I think because we're putting so much investment in some of these new facilities, I think a 3 million would, I mean, even on normal situations, I don't know that I would recommend 3 million just because I don't think the demand is as much. Other programs, this stuff is pretty straightforward. Again, it's all sort of dictated by law. It's $1.8 million. We have state forest road support money. This is money that comes in, accounts for any state forest payments that we receive, which we've allocated to maintenance of county roads that provide access to state forest. So basically, the Public Works Department uses this account for any kind of road maintenance work, any time and effort spent on any of the roads that they're working on, to actually be able to put time and effort into this. I will say, I think that there is some opportunities here to maybe do a little more. I think we've talked to Public Works a little bit about some of their charge-off methods, but I also think this has been money that's accumulated. You know, it's gotten bigger and bigger because, as you can see, the resolution at the Board of Commissioners, it sets aside the first 200,000 from annual payments that we receive. So it's like the $200,000 comes in and the rest goes into the general fund. So you can start to do the math. You can see that it's sort of built up. And but we're trying to look at ways in which if there are costs that we're missing, should be charged there. I also think, you know, conversations with Gary about, is there more we could be doing on some of these roads? Again, it can only be used on specific roads. And that's a conversation that could be held. And then finally, the county school fund, that's pretty straightforward. The funds, accounts for revenues and expenditures required by state law to be retained in the county school fund and dispersed to. And so part of our collection process is we account for that. It comes into the county school fund and we turn around and we ship it out. So, so that's very, very straightforward. And then the last slide is trust fund. These are some unique things. 443,000. The first one is the Benton County Mediation Trust. This is dollars that we get from the state. Vance gets involved a little bit in this, but we work directly with the state courts, and most of it is all used for mediation contracts. By law, the money has to come through us, and then we turn around and we really work with Chris Westfall a lot on this in terms of then implementing contracts for mediation services. It's got to be self-balanced. I mean, we can only spend as much as we have. There has been some problems in the past in terms of, was there enough money? But we've been able to kind of balance this out. I think the state has made some adjustments. The next one's a little unique too, the Benton County Cultural Coalition Trust. We are essentially the fiscal agent for the Benton County Cultural Coalition Trust. So as such, we have a trust fund set up specifically for them. Money comes in and we basically take their direction and pay out grants. So it's, again, a pass-through situation. The only really requirement of the Board of Commissioners is to prove it as part of the budget. We do take a little bit for administrative overhead, but it's really kind of a function of our fiscal department to make sure that those are passed through. And then the last is the Courthouse Preservation Trust. This is basically carryover dollars that we've had as donations over the years. I think as we start to get into discussions about the historic courthouse and what happens next, I mean, this is a source that can be accessed, but basically every year it's pretty much just rolled over because it was dedicated specifically for that. And until we have sort of a game plan on how that money can be used, it will continue just to grow. So, members of the committee, we got 4 minutes before public hearing. That concludes all of the presentations that we have. And certainly open to any questions before you move into your public hearing.
Commissioner Malone.
Yeah, on the capital projects. No, I'm sorry, CIP.
Yes.
I'm lost already.
I pulled it up for you if you need it.
The way you described it in the new buildings and that we maybe don't need as much in that fund, which I can agree with that. I think $1 million is probably. And I haven't added up, but just what we saw from Nate yesterday and mentioned in here, we've already got $2 million worth of requests. And since I've been on that committee, we've always had more requests and we had funding even when we were at the $3 million level. So if there's any opportunity to add to that million, I think that would be wise. We still have aging facilities and I'm very thankful we have Paul Walsinger to guide us and say, oh, no, we can get another 2-3 years out of this roof and that kind of guidance on where we should be putting resources. But I think to go from 3 million, that memory, but I think we spent most of that, if not all of it, in the current biennium. To 1 million seems like maybe too big of a cutback.
I understand that, but I also maybe hoping that if we sell some of our buildings, that we could maybe look at diverting it back into that fund for our existing buildings. So I think there's some flexibility is also, I think Paul's budget's in good shape too, right? That he
Yeah.
can handle a lot of the
Yeah.
deferred maintenance.
I think traditionally, commissioners, as you alluded to, there are a variety of different projects that we see. I think, these times require us to be really clear on our criterion of prioritization. And, I'm not going to say all those projects, there are some projects that had maybe more of emergency nature than others. Some of them were looking ahead, and to Rachel's point, I think we have to look at the bigger picture of, okay, how do we shrink our footprint a little bit as well with all the new facilities coming online, and so that we don't have those old costs. How do we get rid of some of those things? So I don't disagree, Commissioner Malone, with what you're saying. I think, traditionally, you're right. We've been oversubscribed, if you will, but I think that there's some ways that we can be maybe a little more strategic in it too. So yeah, I think it's a balance.
Other question?
I'll wait till deliberations, I guess.
I would like to bring up the correctional facility fund.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so certainly can bring it into deliberations if you like, but I think, so currently, the current budget does not have any kind of dollars or strategy in relation to money for a new jail. We have had discussions as a county about can we start some form of efforts to begin savings? And so there is an opportunity if the committees should wish to maybe put that effort in motion by establishing I don't want to say fund, but within this particular arena. And I would suggest the capital development fund, since that's what we're really talking about. A effort, maybe a correctional facility and maybe a appropriation of a $1 or some very, very small portion so that it's there, it's established, it's an effort. And then we, or I should say the Board of Commissioners, has the opportunity to have discussions with staff about as resources maybe become available, do they shift that money? So as Rachel mentioned, hey, we have, if we sell a facility, maybe the choice is, okay, we're going to put that money towards a replacement of a correctional facility. I think there's other options that we can talk about as well, but it starts the wheels in motion. And I would, if that is something you are interested in, I would suggest a requested change for whatever dollar amount, if it's $1 or what, to put in this, and then we would add that into the approved budget, but that would be a deliberation session.
Thank you.
That'd be an amendment to the budget as proposed.
Yeah. Yeah. Likely it would probably just be an amendment as proposed, because let's just say if it was $1, I would say, okay, put $1 general fund in and reduce the contingency by $1. So it washes, because that's really what.
Got to balance.
Any other questions at this point? Okay, let's open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to address the committee?
Okay.
Mark Yeager, online.
Good morning, members of the Budget Committee. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Again, my name is Mark Yeager. I'm a Benton County resident and taxpayer. Gave you a little bit of background yesterday. I'd like to follow up on a couple things I raised yesterday. And I appreciate the discussion this morning, just the recent discussion about the buildings, because that's an area that is that I have a lot of concern about. I noted that in Tuesday's presentation by Mr. Krager, he referred to right sizing of the county's space. It's a little frustrating to me that we've gone from 12 buildings to 18 buildings. We've acquired all these buildings, taken them off the tax rolls. And I know there's a lot of vacant space in many of those buildings. And we have ongoing operations, which you just talked about. So if there's a serious effort to, as Mr. Krager referred to, right size, I hope that those investments don't end up being losing investments because we purchased those buildings and now we're going to have to sell them at a loss. We have debt on the books to deal with the acquiring of many of those buildings. I'd also like to talk about another issue, which is the vacancy rate factor that's being applied as savings in the budget. I do think it's an interesting approach to use basically what is I'll refer to as funny money, because it's not real savings if those positions are still on the books. And I think Commissioner Shepard raised this the other day. Those positions, if they're still funded on the book, or if they're still there on the books, they could be a future obligation that doesn't really help to balance the budget. So I think that's a little disingenuous of a way to deal with the budget problems that the county is facing. And then finally, the last thing I would like to talk a little bit about, when I spoke the other day, yesterday, I guess it was, about the fleet management situation. I was primarily referring to the external fleet management operations. And when I followed up and looked at some of the documents that were published online regarding fleet management, I noticed that the internal fleet management rates were published in a spreadsheet. And frankly, what's being proposed there is really shocking to me. Essentially doubling the rates charged to county departments for servicing their vehicles, taking over $1 million out of the sheriff's budget for increased fleet maintenance costs, taking $1.1 million out of the public works budget for increased fleet maintenance cost, doubling the rate to community health services. It's just incredible to me, having been responsible for fleet management in the past in a different position. Long ago, we went through the process of contracting out, bidding out those services to see if there were opportunities for more efficiency. It's not just about the hourly rate. It is about how efficient people are in their doing their businesses, and many of the vehicles are not specialized. I know that one of the excuses that the county uses is, oh, these are specialized vehicles and we have to have certain certifications and all that sort of stuff. Well, frankly, that's not really true, because those certifications have to be done. But if you offer the bid to a private contractor, I'm almost done. I'll be right done in just a second here. If you offer the opportunity for private contractors to bid and get those services, they will get the certifications. And so it just is shocking to me that we're cutting public works and sheriff office services to fund the fleet management operations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, then we will close the public and move into committee deliberations. Short break. Short break.
Rick,
Yes, sir.
I was looking at the agenda. We do not have
Ready when you are.
Okay, we will reconvene. For committee deliberations. To get that going, we need a motion to approve the tax rate, the levy rate and the budget before we talk about any possible amendments.
So I've got the motions for the tax rate, if I may, Chair. I move to approve the permanent tax rate of $2.2052 per 1,000 of assessed value in tax year 2025 and 26 to support the 2025-27 budget for Benton County.
There's a second.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Chaz.
And then I have a motion for the local option levy. I move to approve the local option levy tax rate of $0.9 per 1,000 of assessed value in tax year 2025 and 2026 to support the 2025-27 budget for Benton County.
Just a question for you. You said $0.9.
Yes, $0.9000.
Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Fair enough.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the budget as presented?
And then to get the discussion rolling and on the table, I move to approve the 2025-27 proposed budget for Benton County in the amount of $539,427,492.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Chair, if I may make an amendment,
Yes.
I move to amend the budget by increasing the general fund by $1 for the purpose of collecting future revenues for the replacement of the inadequate existing jail with a correctional facility. This will be funded with the reduction of $1 to contingency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment?
So I want to discuss this just a little. I totally agree. I think we should create this. I wanted to talk about the $483,000 that's being moved around because I was wondering how much is work, because I wanted to talk about how much work crew is going to cost. And if there's anything left over from that pot, I think if we can move more than just $1 into this, whatever, it doesn't have to go to work crew. I'd like to move into this because I'd like, $1 is very good and it's symbolic, but if we can get more, let's make it real. That's my thought. So I wanted, if it's okay to have that discussion while we're in this amendment world, that's.
So we're in work crew mode, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving to work crew.
So, so just quickly, as you all recall, the work crew budget that's in the sheriff's office department has had primarily, and Dawn, if I get something, feel free to come up. But basically, it's funded in the sheriff's office. The two resources that we have had primarily have been from NAPE as a transfer and essentially general fund. And then in addition to that, we have had, I think, as they explained, different types of revenues. Republic Service is one of them that has supported. I think part of the conversation, approximately $237,000 that was being eliminated. Could that be made up from, other outside revenue sources? I think the sheriff's office has been clear that they have pursued those type of opportunities in the past, and that it's likely they won't exist. So the question becomes is there another source? Is there another way if this committee wished to continue to do that? I believe there is a opportunity to do that in a budget where it won't change your total budget. There is a opportunity within the existing parks budget, which is general fund, to shift a position that is currently the fair manager, you might all recall. to the actual fair fund. And as such, there is a contingency in the fair fund, as you recall, of TLT dollars that would be reduced to support that. That would then free up enough resources in the general fund to do a direct appropriation to the sheriff's office for that 237,000. In talking to Debbie Sessions in terms of the calculation, the cost of that position shift that I was referring to is actually, obviously it's not exactly 237, but it's more than. And so basically the rest would just, grow the contingency a little bit is what I would suggest, at least for now, unless there's other things.
The 237, does that is more than the fair manager, or the fair manager?
The fair manager is more.
Okay, for
So-
the biennium with, I'm assuming PERS and all
Yeah.
the healthcare, okay.
So does this domino effect have nothing to do with the lottery bonds? Oh, I thought that's why we were talking about that earlier is.
I
that's what
am
that-
I have an
Good
answer for you on the Corvallis, is that I don't have an answer for you on the Corvallis. Paul is out of the office, unfortunately, and
Okay,
I think, I feel like that might, here's one thing I would say, you guys, there still be a budget adoption and there is opportunities within that 10% threshold to make changes. I have to do the calculation to make sure, but we could probably come back and visit that during the 17th hearing if you want to make some kind of changes.
okay.
I just, based on what Commissioner Wise was saying earlier, I think just to make sure we're all comfortable with exactly, is that in the Corvallis budget and what does it mean to you? Then you could save that for the adoption process. Just a thought. Or you could just deal with it.
I'm comfortable proceeding. I mean, it's not like we don't have any other questions in the budget. If This is our intent and some details need to be worked out, but I mean, as far as the budgeted amounts, I think we can go forward as proposed and my only concern, and that's already been expressed, is making sure on the economic development side that our interests are recognized and protected going forward, and in some respects, that's up to us to monitor and make sure that what we currently have will continue with the different funding structure.
So, and just a little bit more information. So please know if you see me typing, I am paying attention. I'm not goofing off. I'm getting information from Debbie as time goes along. And, she has also continued to try to reach out to the CFO and got a hold, but he doesn't know the information. So I just feel like we're probably at a place where we're not, maybe want to put a pin in that one to come back and visit. Just real quickly, just so you guys understand on what the proposal around the work crew piece what that would essentially do is it would not change the total budget in any way. So, but we would probably, or the fund budget. So again, thinking through the general fund, whatever X is of that position cost would go away. And basically that part would be, I guess you could say that would then increase contingency. And then you would just decrease contingency by the 237 and increase it in the sheriff's office budget. So I just want you to know this ends up washing in terms of the total budget. It's just a way you move things around a little bit. So but it's important to get this on the record so that we know that how these budgets need to line up.
So I want to say, I'm sorry for getting us off track here. I thought that the two were connected, the amendment and stuff were connected. So I'll just speak to the amendment. I think that Commissioner Wise is absolutely right that the time, we need to start saving for this correctional facility. And if today, we're in a bit of a deficit, staff's worked hard to come up with a balanced budget. And if it's just $1 today, that's what we can do. That's what we can do. But I think that that's very important that at least we show the community that we heard them and that we need to start saving ourselves to, maybe it's matching funds for some grant down the road, but we need to have something. So I'll be supportive of creating this. And I do want to make sure that it is called out somewhere and not just hidden away, but like it's some sort of line item somewhere where we can show people, hey, you know, we're working on it. So,
And if I might add for Commissioner Wise for consideration, because I'm also getting some notes on a technical standpoint that maybe as part of your motion, you do clarify that we would be establishing a separate cost center within the general fund, likely in the public safety program. And that you would just essentially set that $1 up as materials and services and then reduce the contingency. Sorry, I know that's a mouthful, but, and I don't know you necessarily need a motion, as long as there's clarification here, is that what we would do is set up a $1 cost center within the general fund entitled jail replacement.
Correctional.
Whatever you would like to call it, we would set up a $1 cost center with whatever we want to call it under the public safety program. And it would be a specific materials and service line item that we would set up with a corresponding reduction to the contingency. So again, it washes, but it's there.
Okay, that was the spirit and intent of my amendment to the motion.
Well, and I'm pleased that this discussion has got this far. I've talked with Rick about this over the past year and just how to set this up and show our commitment that we have made amazing progress in our facilities. And now we have one gaping hole, and that it's our commitment to figure out how to address that going forward and having a line item in the budget that we can point to and hopefully find some resources to fill that. I like the notion of having matching funds. I know the sheriff is that national organization with correctional.
Yeah, they're a little quiet right now in Washington DC.
Okay, but that kind of effort and it sounded like we would that it would be no cost to us other than sheriff's time, but at some point may need matching funds or a way of continuing that effort. But we need to show that we're serious about this and I have the dollar if we need the dollar. And
Donation.
I probably have like $2 or $3 in my wallet.
be the first dollar. I'll even sign it almost. Can you do that on?
It might be illegal
That
to
might
face.
not be legal.
gosh, confessing to crimes in public meetings.
So
Commissioner Malone's gonna give the $1. So we can balance. So we can go.
Because then I have to.
I was gonna say, Rick does not want that.
In all seriousness, if you did want that, we were happy to increase the budget by $1 and do it as a donation.
did you have additional?
Nothing else, but I would like to throw something out there, kind of an easy thing, if you're okay with it.
Well,
If you're
we have, doesn't relate to this amendment.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Where are we?
We need to
We're gonna focus on the amendment and talk about,
correct.
okay.
So any more discussion on this amendment?
I guess only that my intention is when opportunities come up, Rick has alluded to this, is when when we get money, if we sell something. To say, can we put even just a small part of that in, 10% or, obviously a larger amount if the opportunity presents itself.
And the board will do that every
Yeah,
time
well,
I get a chance.
I'm one commissioner and that's what I'm saying. I don't speak for the other two
Right,
commissioners. so.
okay. Okay, so any more discussion on the amendment? No? All in favor? Aye.
I,
Chaz?
Okay.
Motion carries. It's okay, we have 5, so motion carries.
Yep.
So that takes us back to we're back at the main amendment. And is there any more discussion? Is there something that you wanted to?
Yeah, so one item I would like to bring to your attention for a potential consideration is that, as we mentioned in the health department budget, we did not just inadvertent include the deflection program for the 25-27 biennium.
I'm sorry, did not include what?
The deflection program.
yes, because I thought they weren't, it's on hold.
Well, again, it is, I don't know that's on hold. It basically is, and, obviously state legislation has to be approved. But I think all anticipations that it is a current position that is, and part of getting this in is that our position would continue. Regardless of what happens, there is going to be carryover money that has to be budgeted in 25-27 from the dollars that are left now. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and do it all right now in terms of increasing the budget for the purposes of the deflection program. And then obviously if state money didn't come through, we would have to come back and visit that. But I guess, again, based on everything I'm seeing from legislation, I don't anticipate that program going away. So what I'm seeing is that in terms of total revenue projected for 25-27 for the deflection program is $847,000. That includes carryover money that we will have from the existing grant and then estimates of 2 more allocations. What we have been told by the state is that we should double up in relation. So that's where that comes in. So what I would be recommending to you is to increase your current proposed budget by $847,000. That would be specifically within the health department, the special grant fund.
What department?
Special grant, for the health department in the special grant fund.
Okay.
So I would move to increase, sorry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I read it out, it's fine. Okay, I move to increase the budget by $847,000 in the special grant fund to account for the deflection program.
In the health department.
I don't think we need to,
Yes.
do we need to say health department in there? Or, because I just said in the special grant fund to account for, okay. Yeah.
Is there a second
Second.
discussion? All in favor of the amendment?
I,
Aye.
I have one more thing I wanted to talk about. I mean, go back to it a little bit, the work crew. What do we need to do to direct staff to make the domino effect happen? Because, if we approve the budget as recommended, that doesn't include those changes. So, and it was a very long list of complicated changes. And so we probably need a motion to direct you to do those, right?
Yeah, so again, my recommendation would be, and I'm sorry, everyone, that this format has been set up in a way to where we're doing these kind of on the fly as opposed to having some time in between. So it might feel a little clunky on this, so I apologize. But so again, what will happen in what I proposed on the work crew is it wouldn't change any of the fund budgets. It wouldn't change the total budgets. But I think what I would suggest that you put on the table for consideration is that a recommendation that we shift current fair costs that are in the general fund to the fair fund. I don't think you need to be any, maybe for the fair manager, how about we be that
Yeah.
specific? We move cost that is currently budgeted in the general fund for the fair manager to the fair fund. And as a result of that savings in the general fund, you shift money
To the sheriff.
to the sheriff's office for the work crew. with the balance to contingency. Because there will be a small balance.
Okay. Yes.
So. I need to, let's see, questions before I just decide that that's a good idea. Based on all of the other needs that we have. Could you please remind me what the TLT money is going for, what we have wanted to use it for?
I'm sorry.
The TLT money, so we would be paying, so we're gonna lose some TLT money to pay, what's the trade-off?
So the trade-off, if you were to request this action, there would be a cost specifically of the personal services that we would put towards personal services within the fair fund, and it would decline the current contingency, which is the TLT, down to approximately $300,000.
What are we sort of earmarking that money for? Money for the,
It's basically been just dollars to the discretion of the board on capital type things. Now, I do want to point out within the fair fund budget, there is currently what is on the table, $1 million of capital outlay from the TLT that is planned.
okay,
So
This
it's
was-
not like you're not doing anything. This is just, so we felt that was an appropriate amount to put out there. And again, I think that still needs some definition, exactly what it means. So I don't want you to think that, oh my gosh, all I have is, $300,000 that's left in the contingency. That's just additional money. So what I have seen and experienced since being here is we haven't used all of that TLT. And part of that is no fault of anyone. It's just more about direction in relation to, and cost, quite frankly.
Are you talking about the 70%
Yes.
portion of the TLT?
so essentially that would be, we're gonna move the position over. That gives us a pot of money in the general fund. Is switching it over to work crew the best use of that? We had a lot of other asks.
We have some options.
I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying it's not. What are our other options? Would we want to fund for a year, the first year of the biennium, and give them a chance to try to find other options? Instead of full amount or I don't know. I'm just trying to talk it out. I think is a good idea.
I would say to me that the question is, do you have an option other, if the idea of the work crew is what is under consideration, then the question is there another option beyond that for the committee to consider? And if so, what is that? Or the other option is that if you can approve, we ultimately want to leave here today having we have the tax rates that approve budget. The Board of Commissioners still has the legal responsibility to accept the recommendation with or without changes from the budget committee. And at that point in time, you can make changes and redo things up to, what's it, up to 10%?
Person, I think.
Okay, without having to reconvene the committee. So you have, between the three of you and the staff, have between now and what date is that?
June 17th.
Now and June
So
17th.
probably backed up a little bit because obviously we
We work out some of these things.
post.
But I am interested to hear other committee members' opinions on this.
So I'll start. I think it is vital that we keep work crew. And that's where I'm starting from, is that this is an important program. The sheriff and the DA both told us how important this is to them. It sounded like it was very important to Jesse too, and he didn't want to let it go, but that's the only way he could make it pencil. And the DA also mentioned how important it would be to our judges. And I think, I just looking at what I've heard from the community constantly is that people want options that aren't incarceration. So like, this is why I keep coming back to having work crew is extremely important. Now, this is staff's first recommendation on how to fund it. So no matter how we choose to use these domino dollars, like frankly, I'm at a point where I don't want to approve a budget unless it has work crew in it somewhere. And if this isn't the way to do it, we need to spend time finding another way to do it. But I think this is a great, this is a great and clever way to make sure that dollars are still being used in their legal sense, and that we have this option for our community. So I am supportive of using this method. If the committee wants to go in a different way on how to spend this money and ask staff to find other money somehow, I wouldn't be immediately opposed to that, but I don't want to just try and keep asking staff, let's free up money in this way let's see how many dollars we can free up in all these different ways, just so we can fund a special project. So I think this was Rick's first recommendation, and that's why I'm supportive of it. So that's how I'll want to allocate the dollars.
I'm also supportive of the work crew. I've stopped by at least a couple of times at the fairgrounds and talked to the sheriff's deputy that's in charge of that program, and we need to fund it. Hopefully this isn't out of line, but as far as TLT dollars, we've been in discussions with the Brandis family on the property to the west of the fairgrounds that we use for parking every fair, and couldn't have a fair without that space. And there are ongoing discussions, and I would hope that if that ever comes to fruition, where we have an agreement, that we would find the dollars to achieve that. Anyway, that I can wax eloquent on the Brandis property and how important that is to the operation of the fairgrounds. And if we had that, it would open up room for maybe having OSU extension building out there. And I mean, it creates some opportunities. So it's nice to have a pot of money sitting there that's has a potential use, but I mean, we've got current usage, but I guess just putting that out there is not quite an obligation, but something that we when the opportunity arises, we should be able to figure out how to pay for it.
Mr. Hall, do you have any thoughts on?
I support Commissioner Shepherd. I would hate to see him go away, even living where I do down in South County on Dawson Road and Bell Fountain Road. The work crew, there's a presence down there. They're out there on the weekends, a couple of weekends a month. And I would hate to see that go away, even picking garbage up along the road. I think that's a good start. If we can find a way to keep it, I would support that. I mean, ultimately, it's up to you three commissioners, but I like it.
I found Commissioner Shepherd's reasons and arguments particularly convincing.
Okay.
Well done, sir. And you made the motion, right?
No, I've got one, but I haven't made it yet.
Okay.
So I move that the fair manager position be funded from the fair fund instead of the general fund, and resulting general fund savings be shifted to the sheriff office for work crew with the balance allocated to contingency.
Second.
Does that sound right, Rick? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
You've got so many things that you're trying to keep track of.
One more time, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I move that the fair fund or the fair manager position be funded from the fair, oh goodness. The fair manager position be funded from the fair fund instead of the general fund, and resulting general fund savings be shifted to the sheriff office for work crew with the balance allocated to contingency.
And the only thing I would add to that is a reduction of the contingency in the fair fund for that cost. So when you did the shift of
Gotcha.
the cost, you're increasing the cost for the position, but you're decreasing the contingency in the fair fund, which is ultimately the TLT.
Move that the fair manager position be funded from the fair fund through a reduction of contingency instead of the general fund, and resulting in general fund savings to be shifted to the sheriff office for work crew with the balance allocated to contingency. Okay.
Perfect.
Is there a second?
Second.
Funded from the fair fund is like, it feels like
It's up to get the clarity.
it feels like it's a 1950s like bit back and forth funded from the fair fund.
Fair fund.
I think you have to pass it though.
Discussion on the amendment? None? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Have we lost Chaz?
Aye.
Chaz,
I was slow to the button. Aye.
okay, thank you. So back to the main motion.
No, did we want to bring up?
Anything else you want to?
So I guess just a couple things to kind of kick out for the committee, if there's discussion that wants to occur. You've talked about vacancy factors.
I'm sorry.
Vacancy factors has been, a discussion. I think there's no perfect answer in any of this. I mean, I appreciate the public testimony earlier, but again, vacancy factor is a common component of any budgeting, and most budgeting practitioners know that, in terms of the typical cost of attrition. People leave. And again, people come, people go, and there is always, nobody stays 24 months through the entire period. And that's really what the purpose of vacancy factor is to try to make an estimate of there are savings, because someone will leave tomorrow, they'll be off, not in the position for 3 months. You don't arbitrarily just go and start spending all that money, or at least that's the idea. There is a generated savings. I have never seen a budget in my 36 years of career that hasn't had it. So I'll just make that statement for some of the conversation that happened this morning.
Part of the reason for that is you can't go above 100%. And so if you can't go over 100, then you're going to have vacancies, and it's would be a number less than 100%. I appreciate that last time, last budget or current budget, that you introduced that concept and to make things more accurate.
Right. So again, I think going back to 2 years ago when this was introduced, let's just go back to the past. We could just make a decision and say, you know what? We estimate the cost for every one of these 600 positions is 24 months, and they're going to be there the whole time. I guarantee you there's savings.
Mhm.
But I guarantee you as a manager, you give me a budget and I'm gonna spend it.
Yeah.
And so the idea of this, and that's, I'm not blaming anybody, that's, you've given them that authorization, that's what they're doing. So what this is attempting to do is say, there is gonna be attrition. People are gonna leave, and sometimes you have a higher paid person that leaves and a lower paid person comes. It doesn't change but there's a savings that automatically occurs. And like I said, if you look at national statistics, it would suggest 3 to 5% typically. We applied, I think, as I told you 2 years ago, 3.4% in total. Sorry, 3.6 in total. And guess what? We made it. I'm happy to say we have a balanced budget, and guess what? We also absorbed increases that were approved in addition to that. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying that there wasn't sacrifices, but it required managing budget. What's happening now is obviously we have had choices to make in terms of, okay, the money isn't as plentiful as it used to be. Do we push that envelope? I would say my point of view is the vacancy factor that we've had in the past was probably more on the lower end. Again, it sort of proved out. Now, again, it's not true for everybody. What's true for the sheriff's office isn't true for the juvenile department. And as I've said, it depends. And we have to manage that. And I think there is always a bit of a risk on this, is that if we went too high, we have to solve the problem. It's not like we can just say, oh gosh, we missed it. Sorry. We're going to have to come back to the Board of Commissioners and say, guess what, Board of Commissioners, we missed. And we have to make decisions. Do we pull on those contingencies that we have to be able to bail, or do we cut budgets elsewhere? Those are choices to make. And so it's always a tough one. I think as you look at this, the question becomes, is there any of the vacancy factors? And, there's so many different types of influences that happen with this. I mean, you could say, well, everybody should have got the same across the board, and that would have been one way to do it. But there's been so many puts and takes and changes. Some people have chosen to eliminate staff because it was able to work in their budget. I'll use the sheriff's office as an example, because clearly they, as the sheriff talked about, and Don would say, they're fully staffed right now. And that's a little bit of a scary proposition to know that, okay, all my staff are filled, or is somebody going to leave? Probably, but again, it depends on the situation. The alternative would have been to say, well, eliminate staff. And so it gives you as management some flexibility to manage within that. My biggest concern with the vacancy factors are just the ones that are abnormally larger. And I will tell you, I am concerned about NAEP, and there was a mistake there. I've looked back to the history of NAEP, and they have performed roughly around a 10% vacancy rate. I'm sorry, yeah. That still feels a little high too. Jesse does have some flexibility with a current vacant position, but 13.9% is kind of high for a department of 15.
Yeah.
So that worries me. The district attorney's office is a 14%. Now, you've heard me say before, if you look at the history of the patterns, 16 to 18%. That's where they've been. Now, Ryan's new, he's got a different approach, and again, 14, we chose last time to stay around 8.7% with the district attorney's office. They blew that out of the water. I mean, there's lots of savings, again, because their actual vacancy has been somewhere up to, 20%. Those are hard positions to fill. I mean, again, you're going to see higher vacancy rates in healthcare. You're going to see higher vacancy rates in attorneys. They're just harder to hire. And again, if you look at the data and information, it's those specialties. So 14% is teetering for me. It's up there. I think it's possible. I think Ryan, as he said, has 6 vacancies right now. So he has options. This one's always a little bit uncomfortable for me because we are the Board of Commissioners office, but we also have been to try to be aggressive. 10.8% for a team of 13 is pretty high too. I'm not saying it isn't manageable. You asked good questions in terms of, because we were talking about the Board of Commissioners. I mean, we have a vacant position right now. And we can continue to make that vacant to be able to meet those rates. But we also recognize there's lots of opportunities lost. But we also know things are going to change. We just know it. It will. Something could happen tomorrow, one of us get hit by a bus. I'm sorry, that's fine. Why? I said one of us.
It's like, it's not gonna be me.
So that was bad. But things happen, right? And
Was that one of our
Well, it's
buses?
not that
Was it the
much.
electric bus that we're talking
Wasn't a
about?
bad bus. So
Can't hear
again,
those.
you know,
They're
it's, is it a risk? Yeah, it's a risk and, and we know we got our work cut out for us on those, but those are three that are double digits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're double digits, so it's appropriate for me to say that to you. Now, there's other ones, I mean, I'll look at our folks, the sheriff's office, I'm not gonna, I mean, certainly public safety. I mean, the idea of not being able to hire police officers, I get that, and there's a huge need, and there, you know, it is a fully staffed, it's not, they've been very successful, the sheriff, undersheriff have been great in terms of filling their positions, so, I'm sure if Dawn was sitting here, she'd say, yeah, she's concerned about it. It's going to be a challenge to fill. I mean, they currently, you know, in terms of current service level, as we reported, is a 5.1 vacancy rate. They were a 3.3 2 years ago, so it's higher. There's no doubt it's higher, and they had to work. They had to work last time to be able to make that all work. So all of these come with risk, and at the end of the day, like I said, if we miss, we have to solve. We have to figure if the sheriff's office gets to a point 6 months, a year in and says, Rick, we're doing everything we can, we're gonna have to come back and have a conversation and figure out how to do it. So again, all I can report to you is, and what I tried to disclose for you, and this isn't a perfect way of doing it, but if it gives you any kind of assurances, I tried to go in and look at it because, again, you can't just say, well, cost increased by X percent. You know, it's the X percent, this vacancy versus this last vacancy versus this, because salaries are higher. So again, what I was trying to do is get to a point of what is really the difference between 2 years ago's rate and this year's rate. So what I came up with, and again, I'm not saying it's perfect math, but it's roughly about $2.6 million higher from a county standpoint. Okay, but then what I also tried to do is give you a trending of where our current budget is. And I looked at it, and again, all those factors that I talked about, increase in raises, right now, again, knock on wood, $3.8 million surplus. So we perform the same way as we did this last time. We just eat that $2.5 million. We covered it. So my point is that we've done it. We've overperformed last time, and I don't know, overperform's not the right word. What we estimated for vacancy was low. As a county, again, I'm not speaking for each and every department, but as a county, it was low.
It worked.
It worked.
It works.
So, sorry, this
Please.
is a good place to jump in.
Yeah.
For NAPE, I am particularly, out of the ones you mentioned, NAPE does concern me since it is a smaller department. Do we need to do something? Should we do something? Should we wait and see how it goes?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So I'm gonna throw some things out here for you. One thing that we've talked about that we're probably not going to move on here today is the lottery money. So I mentioned to you the dollars that I believe will come back to us. Part of what I was going to suggest was consider putting that lottery money that's free into CIP. Keep it at $1 million and take that 400 and so money as general fund that is available for consideration of things. I'll just say things. This could be one of those things. I do think that based on the calculations, I think Jesse could probably be roughly around more like a 7.5%, like you said. And I think that would cost you about $200,000. Again, one option was this 400 and something thousand. Now, let's put that aside for a minute and I'll give you another option. We've been very successful, as you know, with the capital development account with earning interest Rates have been good to us. And as such, we've earned accumulation that is over what is needed to construct our new courthouse. Now that we're all locked into prices of approximately, we have an approximate amount of money that we've earned over. And what we're recommending in this budget is to take $2.4 million of those overages, which is interest, and pay our debt service. Because the only thing you can use that money for is to pay the debt service or to pay for the construction cost. So since we have it, we pay the debt service, it saves the general fund 2.4. We can push that probably a bit. Again, we've overperformed, I'm always conservative, but we've
Push the 2.4
the
million.
2.4. I think, I don't want Debbie to jump out of her skin here and just jump through the screen and strangle me, but so I did check with her a little bit if she would be comfortable, but I certainly invite her if she wants to participate in this. I think we both feel, based on our earnings projections, we could probably afford another $500,000.
Earnings projections are eggs, no, wait, don't count your chickens before they hatch. The metaphor I'm looking for, we don't have the money yet, that's what we're assuming.
Well, it's an assumption, but I think I can tell you, we have budgeted this thing to the T. I mean, we have a month by month calculation on this that we look at this. Debbie and I communicate very often in terms of the earnings that she's getting on. Right now, we actually have gotten less conservative on our investments just because we've done so well, as she's been sitting a lot of money in the short-term fund, but I think we could do better based on where the curve's at, so we could do some more investments. But again, I feel very confident in, where rates are at and what we can achieve. And like I said, I was also being conservative to begin with. Now I think we could probably even earn more than what I had forecasted, and I can afford to be less conservative. So that's the reason I would be comfortable with another $500,000. Now, $500,000 isn't, it sounds like a lot, but there is consideration for you on vacancy factors if you wish to make any relief there. I think the only other question I would ask you, just because it seems to come up a lot, is some of the changes to management. Clearly, I think everyone we talked about, do we freeze COLAs for the next 2 years? Those are future future salaries to our management employees. I think that I think that's in tough times, that's one of the things to go. The other portion that we haven't talked as much about is you're basically on July 1 taking salaries from your management employees. You're reducing the 3% employer contribution to 1.5%. And I just raise that for you because it kind of, in my mind, it goes a little bit together. On the one hand, you're saying to management, well, we've got a tighter budget. We're going to have to manage these higher vacancy factors, and that puts stress on everybody. And then at the same time, we're saying, well, guess what? We're also reducing your salaries on January 1. So I'm just putting that out there for you guys it's really your decisions on this. But just so you know, if you're looking for a dollar amount on this, I mean, roughly we're talking about, because again, you got to remember this is spread out amongst all funds. You're roughly looking at about a $500,000 impact, but when you look at the general fund, roughly about $280,000. So just for your consideration on all these things.
Are those numbers connected to the COLA freeze?
No.
One or the other.
Yeah, no, I'm only talking about the 1.5, 3%.
But that's already in the budget.
It's baked in to reduce on July 1, the 3% contribution to 1.5.
Okay.
So on July 1, every management and representative staff will no longer get a 1.5% of their contribution will go away.
Including the only elected officials.
Yes.
Does district attorney have that? No, they just have a stipend.
They have a stipend.
Sorry.
Back to the interest rates, I'm comfortable. I haven't seen all the details, but interest rates have been between 4% and 5% for at least the last 2 years. And there's no reason that they're gonna drop off from that. I mean, they may taper down over time, but so I think that 500,000 that we could have to work with, kind of comfortable with that. That we have been conservative in 5,000 is a result of that. But, I guess the NAEP factor just stands out as I think you said some mistake somewhere. We have seems like we have the opportunity now to fix that. And right size it and bring it down to what it was in the current budget at over 8%. And you said the cost of that was 200,000
Well, I'm sorry.
For NEEP.
Yes.
to go from 14% vacancy factor to 8.
Yeah.
Currently is.
Yep.
Commissioner Shepherd.
All right, thank you. So I have, Rick talked about 36 years. I've only been doing municipal or local budgets for 5 years. This is my 6th. There's always savings from vacancies. And, I've come around on this idea from Tuesday of just like, but I still do have concerns about, I don't want staff to not fill positions because they're required to have a certain amount of vacancy savings. So that's still the tension that I'm sitting in about trying to work through this. I'm trying to work my way through this $500,000 that we're talking about, but I'm going to start with the vacancy rates of NAEP, and yes, that is concerning. That's very high for a small department. I personally don't feel like this is a problem that we should try and solve today right now, because I think that this I prefer the method of figuring out what to do with these lottery backed stuff. That seems a little more straightforward than this debt payments, because I'm still trying to work through how that buys us anything, and I'll get to that in a
Talk to you
second.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated, but not too much.
Okay. Because and if that's a question that we're not going to answer today because we're not sure how that contract's going to go out, the vacancy rate is not, it's not a problem until it's a problem, right? We don't know that they're not going to meet that goal until they start getting to a point where they don't meet that goal. So what I feel comfortable with, and what I would prefer, is if we take that $483,040, I wrote it down here. And at some point, whenever we get to it, that becomes our, not just contingency, but our vacancy rate contingency, because we're concerned about the sheriff's office, because, oh no, we're fully staffed in the sheriff's office. What a shame. But this is, I think that we have these concerns, and I think that's money that if it's just sitting there, that can help us assuage our higher than typical vacancy rates. So that's where I'm sitting on that. And then my question about this $500,000, so you're saying that this debt service that we were talking about, which we were thinking about paying 2.4 or something like that.
Yeah.
We can go up another 500,000, and what does that free up, or what set of dominoes does that set in motion?
So let me maybe explain a little bit different. So the courthouse district attorney project, major project, $86 million worth, so a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
And so what we do is, we forecast all the money and all the estimated expenditures out over all the way to the end of construction. So I have this for every month by month, until we're done. And as part of that, I estimate the interest earnings because money is in that account is sitting and Debbie's investing some of that, or we're making decisions on a daily basis and what we do with that. So when I put it all together, I've said, okay, this is how much money I have in, I'm getting from the state. This is how much money I have from tax exempt bonds. This is how much money I think I'm earning. And when it's all said and done, I have about $3 to $3.2 million more because of those good interest earnings above and beyond what is needed. Okay, so typically in a fund, that would be contingency. Now, you could say, well, you need contingency for the project, but remember, the construction already has contingency built in it. We are locked into a GMP on that. That was the key we get into. And I think we have a pretty aggressive contingency baked into. So I feel very, very comfortable with these dollars. Now, again, these are sacred dollars. They're tax exempt. They have to be used to pay for debt service or for contracts. So what I said was, what we could do is we could take that 3.2-ish million and we could use 2.4 to pay for debt service, which relieves the general fund. That's what was in your budget right now. There's still 800,000 there. And again, I'm always going to be conservative. You say, well, Rick, why don't you go all the way up to 3 point? Well, and things do happen. We could spend faster, less, and I like to be conservative. As time goes along, we get closer, then maybe you start to free that up. What I'm saying is that looking at the numbers now, I think that number at 3.2 could be even bigger based on some of our performance, which gives me more comfort in letting that contingency that you have baked in right now go. Not all of it, but I'm saying 500,000.
So you're saying we'd increase the payment from the interest by about 500,000, which would relieve about 500,000 from the general fund? Okay, and then so it's not as complicated as I thought it was. It's just.
And probably the way, I talk sometimes, and I know, I'm sorry, it gets a little technically oriented, but you got to kind of walk it through. But yeah, it's similar to what we talked about with Fair Fund thing, right? Just a little bit, a different fund.
Okay, so that's about 500,000 from the general, and we said it's about 200,000-ish to reduce NAPE's vacancy rate.
Right.
And about how much was the
Deferred comp.
deferred comp?
1 sec, I'm just gonna make sure that I have the exact number, so just give me one little tiny bit. I
Your human
apologize.
calculator.
No, I actually just need to look
I
at.
think one of my favorite things about the budget commission meeting so far is I found out that my laptop has a button that just opens the calculator. And so
What?
it's
I'd love to know
it's
that.
it's above the numpad, above my num lock. It just has a button and I press it and it opens a calculator. So you don't have that? Yeah. So I found that out.
Work in IT, obviously.
Yeah, while Rick's working, I thought I'd share that with everyone.
I often bump buttons accidentally and then stuff happens.
Definitely not how I found that out.
Well, general, I not enough sleep. I was backwards. I said 283, it's 238.
Okay.
So that's what Debbie has done last night, early this morning to kind of just give us an idea. Just in full disclosure, what it means is 565 in total, but the general fund portion of that is the 238. The rest of these are you would just be reducing contingencies because the savings that you created just increased the ending balance or contingency, like in the road fund and in healthcare. So total impact, but those other ones, again, it's the same principle. You're just reducing the contingency and increasing the cost if you approved it.
So you said it's 560 over.
565
Over the-
estimate to add everything back, of which an estimated $238,951 is general fund, which is your important one.
Okay, and then, but everything else. I mean, if we. Sorry, I'll give them just a sec. But So that's what, 330 across the rest of the budget out of various contingencies, reducing our contingency, which is currently at 10 point.
Not that contingency.
Not that, because that's the general.
That's the general fund.
Okay.
Not touching that.
Yeah, that's what I was, that's why I was trying to figure this out. Okay. Okay, I'll try and think while I listen.
Yeah, no, great question. No, and good. I'm thank you for paying attention to 10.3. No, I'm not, none of that. That's sort of the sacred piece here. In fact, with your decision, you increase that contingency by a tiny bit for the unrestricted by the decision you made on the fair fund.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wise has been anxiously waiting to
I'm
say.
trying my best. I have maybe three-ish things. So also, we were talking about that contingency fund being, it is below 12%. So, which is what we're shooting for, the best practice. So I mean, if we are, this is just another consideration, if we are freeing up some money there or have a little bit extra, that just gets us, that itches us a little closer to the 12%.
Absolutely. If this makes, and I know we haven't talked about reserves very much, and again, it's my job to try to always be as conservative. I always want to overperform for you and be able to, do better. I mean, you always think in worst case scenarios. Again, I'm gonna look to Rachel in terms of some of the things that we're already starting to try to cut back costs now. Trying to be more not hiring positions. What I'm trying to do, what we are trying to do is make that beginning balance or ending balance, I should say, for this biennium, which will become the beginning balance for next biennium, make it bigger. And that's what we're working on. I think we should be trying to predict anything around that right now, because the idea is if we overperform for you, that $10.3 million just got bigger and gets us closer to that 12%.
Get
that
it
make
closed
sense?
out, yeah.
Because again, we're making an estimate of what a beginning general fund balance is going to be. And if we can cut costs now in any way we can make that beginning balance bigger, which basically it all goes to reserves forward. Gives the Board of Commissioners an option to come back and say, hey, Rick, we're okay with staying at 10.5%, and we want to consider, I don't know, reducing vacancy factors or something like that. I mean, it's always, and to Commissioner, I liked what Commissioner Shepherd said earlier about the $483-ish thousand. I mean, that is money you can just hold on if you wish, because at any point in time, we could come and say, okay, let's divert this to the CIP, free up some of that general fund and make that a contingency for those vacancies, or reduce those vacancies right now. I mean, that's going to be your guys' choice. So you have some options, you have some tools in your toolbox to mitigate some of these concerns that, and rightly so, I'm pleased, and no, I'm not questioning any of the concerns that our departments have about higher vacancies. I get it. And like I said, our own situation is going to be aggressive. And it's going to create sacrifice. But I think we can work together to try to find ways that if that doesn't come to fruition, we're able to help.
Thank
But
you.
it requires all of us.
So yes, that was just my first thing. So, also, so we have the debt. Are we able to pay? Are there any penalties for paying it down faster or paying extra payments?
That's a great question.
Just hypothetically, if there's not, I mean, the debt costs us money, right? So if we are making interest, but if we do put that money in, like it's our job to think about now and the next 2 years, but we should also think about 20 years from now, if we can save money, if there's a way to save money later on and pay it off
I'd
faster.
have to get back to you on that, Commissioner Wise. A lot of times in the covenants of tax exempt debt, just to remember, you're making a contract with bondholders. So they made this investment with the expectation, hey, I'm going to get paid, over time. And then there are sometimes prepayment provisions that says you can do it, but there's a penalty associated with it because obviously you are kind of breaking your contract with the bondholder. So I'm not positive on that. I'd have to go and take a closer and consult with bond counsel.
I just want to make sure we're thinking about everything that we can.
Understood.
The interest rate on the debt that we have is fairly low. Is that
Yeah, oh, yeah,
That's
yeah, no,
less than 3%.
we hit the jackpot. I mean, that was the best time ever because as you guys recall, we got an upgrade right before we issued bonds, so we got a credit upgrade and then that helped and we hit the sweet spot in terms of our total debt. So yeah, we have a nice, I mean, as nice as, I mean, it'd always be nicer, but
Right.
if we would have 2 years earlier, it would have been even better than that. But yeah, no, it was very good. Very good deal.
And we're currently making more interest. We were in the 4.5% range.
We are, I want to be very, I don't want to get complicated here, but with tax, in the world of tax exempt debt, we have this thing called arbitrage and we can't issue tax exempt debt and make money. But we have provisions to be able to earn the same thing that, so basically earn in interest what you are paying. And if you were to go over that, you actually have to rebate that to the federal guy. I know it's wonky provisions, but that's part of the management and that's over a 5-year period. So it gives you time. So like you could be earning 6% now, but you're going to be earning 0% in year 4. So it all washes out. But we have people, really high paid professionals that calculate arbitrage for us to make sure that we're never in a rebate situation. I feel very confident in this particular arena in terms of managing that. So we want to earn a lot, but we have to always be careful that we just can't go gangbusters. If suddenly the market were to go up to 7-8% type, we would probably be limited on how much we can earn. But so long as we're floating around a 4%, we're in good shape. Sorry, I didn't mean to get into
No, that's okay. That's good for us to all know. Okay, so what if can we establish some sort of fund or pot of money that is for all of the departments of, here is some backup money earmarked for if you go over your vacancy rate. And that way we're not trying to just give some to one department or another. It's just it's a pot that if needed can be a backup.
You could do that. I mean, I guess I look at, the way I look at it is that's the reason we have unrestricted reserves in our general fund. And again, we want to always try to maintain that at 12%, but that's why I was obviously uncomfortable when this was going to be 6%. Wanted to build it back to 10.5. We always have that discretion. And, you guys basically have, or will have under, your authority, $10.5 million. If bad things happen, we can, it's not like we're going to say no, we can make decisions. We can also ask, are there other opportunities? And here's the thing that goes with this is that, this is where your CFO comes in and has to manage the entire budget because sheriff's office could be in a situation where maybe it's really tight. And we're getting close, but then the district attorney's office is in this place. So it's kind of the shell game of puts and takes. We're looking at it. The CFO is looking at it from the big picture standpoint across the board. So part of it is being able to look at the bottom line. And there could be a situation where just using the sheriff's office example since they're here. But where they say, well, we don't completely meet it. And that's where the communication with Dawn and the CFO is going to be important to always be watching that. But then the CFO is looking over here in the rest of these departments and there's high vacancy. I'll use as an example. I think Commissioner Shepherd pointed this out, Community Development Department.
It was on my list of things to talk about.
It had a high, it's obviously done really well, right? Well, it has a high vacancy. But that helps offset maybe those other vacancies that didn't come through. And that's why I say you have to look at the entire picture. And I know a department and I appreciate the stewardship of the sheriff's office and Dawn to always be very precise in terms of balancing to that budget. And that's great. That's what we want. But it may be at some point she has to come to the CFO and say, listen, I've done everything I can. It's not working. And that person's going to need to look to see, hey, do we need to make some movements around, or is it okay if you go over because I'm way under over here? So that's why I get nervous when we start saying, okay, well, let's make this one a little higher because they had a high vacancy last time because while it's a community development department now, it could be another department next biennium that maybe suddenly has a high list of vacancies. So that's why in
Things
managing.
we
it's
can
really
manage through the vacancy. Yeah.
So and I guess the motivation for me for what can we do to help our employees sleep at night, our managers sleep at night? A lot of them are worried about this vacancy factor thing. So is there messaging that we can send that, I mean, obviously, we don't want to say, hey, everyone, you can just pull your vacancy back.
I
to
think
rate.
the things, I think the thing that would help the departments, I mean, obviously the thing that would help the departments is reduce the vacancy factors. That would be one thing, maybe back to the level it was. Like I said, apples to apples, that would be about a $2.5 million fine for you right now. If you were to take it back to previous levels for all departments.
Well, I guess I just mean more like, I mean, you just explained how there's this shell game thing and that's a better solution probably than just like, hey, everyone, there's a pot of money we can share or draw from as a backup.
I think, I think the thing that makes the departments nervous, obviously, is they know I respect they understand the big picture. They understand that, our reserves aren't what they used to be. And they, 2 years ago, they probably heard me say, well, if you get in trouble, it's going to be okay. Because we have those reserves, they're higher. Now that's not the case. And so it becomes more of a question of, is that going to be there? I think that's where we've just got to be, really prudent in our decision-making going into this, manage this budget really well and do the things to kind of grow those reserves so that we have those protections. I feel very confident and comfortable in where we're at with this proposed budget to be able to do that. Before the proposed budget in the current service level, I wasn't comfortable. And that, I'm much more comfortable now. Could I be more comfortable? Sir. Yeah, there's a lot more things I think I'd like to see it done, but I'm not taking away from your point, Commissioner Wise. I mean, is there, to go back to your original question, can you do that? Yes. Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I mean, it's just another pot. To put, it's
I don't know
okay.
if it's a good idea, I mean.
How is it a different pot than the contingency fund?
It's not really.
It's a second
It's
contingency.
just another, I mean, again, if you wanted to have, sort of like the jail thing, if you want to have a token, secondary contingency, to me, we'll probably all manage it the same way, but certainly if that gives comfort to people, because what you're basically saying is that rather than spending that $483,000 of lottery, you're saying, I'm going to basically, well, you would end up using it. You would say, I'm going to use the $483,000 of lottery in CIP and that extra general fund that I was going to use, I'm going to save it. So if you want to say I save it for vacancies, cool.
So on the vacancy factor, what you're saying is the number that really counts is the bottom line. In the current biennium.
Oh, yeah, it's the bottom line. It's not about just one department. I mean,
It's currently 3.6 and in the proposed budget, it goes to 4.8.
yep, that's exact. It's gone up 1.2% average for the county from what it was 2 years ago. And again, we are projected to have, some savings from that. So I feel confident in that. But, you could, again, and that will go down, obviously, with the adjustment to NAEP, sorry. So that average will go down. But again, if you're a department that, gets in trouble and as the analyst is watching the budget and says, oh boy, we're not where we need to, then we need to look at the bigger picture. So,
Okay.
but it's the bottom line.
Okay.
It's the bottom line.
It's one county. Yeah.
And so we other than Nate, we really don't have to mess with, well, this one's too high and this is just, it's the number in green. And I guess I appreciate your approach 2 years ago that it wasn't a bean counters. Okay, everybody's 4% or 6% or what I remember is you went department by department and went back at least 2 budgets, if not 3, and to see what the vacancy factor actually was before you came out with a projection that we're currently dealing with. And it'd be a lot quicker for you to just have a across the board, pick a number, but you didn't do it the easy way.
So again, you guys always hear me say, you know, no budget is, and this budget by far has been, one that not the way we would ultimately like to do it. I mean, all of this stuff, this is where our analysts and, working together, there's by far a better, I would have been there to do a little bit more analysis and deeper analysis on vacancy factor. I still think it's a conservative number based on how we performed.
And we're still,
I'm not saying it can't be better, please. I mean, but I do think it's conservative.
and we're still within the best practices, 3 to 5%.
That's what.
So there's a motion on the floor.
And 2 more questions.
Okay.
Is there?
On vacancy.
Sorry, I heard ECI and I heard COLAs. Are those the same or different?
Basically, they're not this, they're different, but they, for all intents and purposes, are the same because some people call it COLA, some people call it what we choose to do, sorry.
Yes, nope, that's what I was thinking. Okay. And then I had a comment about Board of Commissioner, our office, but that's not the right time. Can we be reminded what the motion on the table is?
I think the motion's just the budget. I don't think we have an amendment right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Do we, I don't think we have an amendment. I think it's just the,
There is no amendment.
Okay.
We amended the budget and so the motion on the floor is to
approve the budget.
approve the budget unless somebody wants to further amend it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is the hope that we are going to do something about NAPE today or no?
I would recommend similar to like what you did with the fair fund. Again, you don't have to, if you don't want to, if you'd rather like roll the dice with this higher vacancy and then just let's manage it and see how it goes and come back later, that's fine. It's the one that is the most, again, and I know for a fact it was not what it was intended to be.
Again, we're here to do this work right now, so my preference is to try to get everything done now versus kicking the can down the road, but I'm just one budget committee member.
Okay.
So you have NAPE on the floor,
Well, not on the floor.
not on the floor, but
They're
in
just-
consideration.
Yeah, we're talking about it. So. Okay. I'm working my way around this debt repayment thing and so. 238,000, so okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna back all the way up. You're saying we can free up essentially $500,000 of general fund.
Yep.
238 of that plus contingencies from across the budget can go to restoring the deferred comp.
Yes, it could if that's what you chose.
Yes. Yeah, it's can. Do we have an exact number for NAPE to
Yes.
reduce them? Because all I heard was about 200,000.
Sorry,
You have it.
and I had it on my calculator.
And I do.
$200,243.
200,243. Okay, I'm writing that down. So what that would leave, if we chose to do both things, returning to the deferred comp to 3% and restoring NAPE to a more reasonable vacancy rate, it would still leave us with $38,000 that would go to the contingency. Or go to the general fund contingency fund if we allocated $500,000 and did all that.
So for exact numbers, just to kind of repeat,
Okay.
$200,243 for the restoration or a decrease in the NAPE vacancy factor. $238,951 for restoration, general fund cost for restoration of the 1.5%. Would get you to a total of $439,194 with a remaining balance of $60,806.
Okay. So I am going to just put it out there and then we'll see if it gets a second and we'll see if we want to do this. So this motion is doing a lot of things. So I move to allocate an additional $500,000 from where toward for debt repayment. Where is it coming from?
Capital Development Fund.
From Capital Development Fund towards debt payment, reducing debt payment from the general fund by $500,000.
Yep.
Increasing general fund contingency by $60,806 and allocating $238,951 from the general fund to return management deferred comp to 3%. Reducing contingencies from across the budget to return the deferred comp to 3%.
Can I give you a number for that?
Yep.
$326,785.
326,785. To reduce contingencies from across the budget by $326. Sorry, $326,785 to return the deferred comp to 3%. And yeah, this is doing so many things. Allocate $200,243 from the general fund to reduce natural area parks and events vacancy rate. And I don't think we need to get a specific number there because we put in a specific dollars. Shall I try that again?
Yes, from the top.
Okay, one more. I need to write something else. Sorry.
I think it's all right too, though, Gabe, but it's good to read it one more time. I think you got it.
Would it be possible to see that in writing on a shared screen?
Once I read it again, I can send it to Mariah and she can either put that in the chat or something like that. So I move to allocate an additional $500,000 from Capital Development Fund toward debt payment, reducing debt payment from the general fund by $500,000. Increasing the general fund contingency by $60,806 and allocating $238,951 from the general fund to return management deferred comp to 3%, reducing contingencies from across the budget by $326,785 for return management deferred comp to 3%, and allocate $200,243 to natural area parks and events to reduce their vacancy rate.
One more adjustment, Gabe.
Okay.
The first part where you're doing the $500,000 from the development fund, can you also add in there the way you're doing that is reducing the contingency in the development fund? By the same amount.
Yep. All right, I have it all written out. And I haven't gotten a second, so I will.
That's one more time.
Okay, let's do it one more time.
Just for the minutes, I know, like,
Right. Move to allocate an additional $500,000 from Capital Development Fund by reducing development fund contingency toward debt payment. Reducing debt payment from the general fund by $500,000, increasing the general fund contingency by $60,806, and allocating $238,951 from the general fund to return management deferred comp to 3%, reducing contingencies from across the budget by $326,785 to return management deferred comp to 3% and allocate $200,243 to NAPE to reduce the vacancy rate.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay. Second for discussion.
Yeah, on the 238,000 on deferred comp, what was the rationale from reducing it from 3% to 1.5%? I remember seeing something about it, that evens things out with other contracts.
Yeah, well, I mean, so basically, obviously, you know, in a situation when you're looking at a $20 million hole, I mean, you're looking for all of the things that, you know, make the most sense. I think, you know, that was a option that was put in this proposed budget because like you said, right, currently, with represented employees, that contribution is 1.5%. But that's contractual, and what we have as a county done for incentivize in terms of management has been 3%. And so that's always been in there. So I think, you know, I don't know if rationale is the right term, but basically what it does is everybody is at 1.5%. But as I said, I think as you think about it, I mean, you are basically taking money from management on July 1. So I think as we listen, you know, I guess that's a question for all of you is,
Right.
you know, is that something you want to do? But it's, I guess, you know, all this stuff goes together. What's more important? It's like you are asking management to do more than what they have traditionally done with higher vacancies potentially. And is this a gesture?
And again, it's not just management, it's all management confidential employees as well. So we have a lot of people across different that are MCs that also this covers. It's not just the directors. So
I guess I'm a little, and the commissioners are in this category. So
yes,
That is correct, yes.
commissioners and elected officials, you know.
I'm uncomfortable. I guess in some ways it's no change in the current structure,
Correct.
but we're not voting for ourselves.
That's a good point. Also, I will just share my deferred compensation lost more money than was put into it. So. Is it I don't know if maybe mine's different. I don't know how that works across the board of everybody's deferred comp, but is it a good use of county money if we're putting it into somewhere and then it's not?
Well, I mean, that's really more of a market situation. And that's, of course, as, you know, everybody is in sort of that same boat is, you know, you get a contribution and do you gain or do you lose? You lose now, but as they always say, it always comes back. And so, I mean, it's not a loss for the county, it's a loss for the employee based on what their choices are on how they invest or how that money is put
But if
in.
we're sure, and I'm just, if we're trying to make money on how do we get the biggest bang for our buck? With our county money. Are we really helping employees? Maybe it is, like you said, if someone's, maybe after 20 years, if they have 20 years left on it, it's gonna come back. I don't know. I don't know enough about that stuff.
I
That
think,
is my
You
concern
know,
is
this is where an investment analyst comes in, but I think, you know, history would tell you that, you know,
You'll make it
investments
back.
in that,
Yeah.
you get it back over time, but you're gonna have the bad times. Of course, like 2008, everything goes crazy, but then, you know, so it's.
It depends on the year you decide to retire and take your.
Exactly, yeah.
I can follow up. If you were working on this item in the budget at this point, would you be looking at making this reduction?
Oh, wow, you're gonna put me on the spot, aren't you? Gosh, you know.
It can be a qualified answer.
It has been brought up since we announced this.
You know, I
that it has brought some unhappiness
I think-
with our management structure that this is considered a cut for them as well. And so that's pretty much why we brought this back up as an opportunity to probably reestablish that. defined benefit when they signed up for this position and they got hired by us. So I think it was something that they're looking for in their future. I think that that's fair to say that it's, I think that's, we all work hard and I think that's something they wanted to look at, but I agree that they're not performing right now for compensation plans. So I can see where it would be discouraging, you know.
Yeah, you know, and again, you make these proposals and that's why we go through these processes and you learn more as you go through. You hear from the public, you hear from employees, you hear from management and so to go to the question, you know, I think if I could go back in time and look at it, I mean, I think it probably would be a different consideration based on if I knew then what I know now and how much it would be an impact to folks. And again, you know, what factors into this is, you know, what are we asking management to do the next 2 years? It's so tough question.
What do you think, Rachel?
What do
know
I
you said
believe?
A little bit, but yeah, hot seat.
So it's a cut, it's a salary cut for people in management confidential. And I want to emphasize that it's easy for someone like me who makes a very good salary in government to say it would be beneficial. But I am thinking more of the management confidential folks at the front line, those who make $60,000 a year, who are management confidential, who, which is the entire HR team, many people in IT, the Board of Commissioners staff, just in big chunks, the command staff over in the sheriff's office. Those are the folks that, you know, use deferred compensation to help position themselves towards a mortgage, right? Because it is looked at as a savings plan that is in place, not that you have to use it for the sale, but it is something that we use, middle-class families use as a bargaining chip when they do want to get to the place of homeownership. So things are just going to get more expensive. I understand that. I know that this can seem unfair, especially to our representative folks out there. But at the same time, when we announced this was at the very beginning of looking at a $20 million deficit. And so we had to kind of tighten our belts and look at that. Now we have a little bit of money. We have little pots of money where we can restore and work with, which is like a $500,000 world. We looked at NAEP and now we're looking at this piece. If you said to us you wanted other options that were $200,000 in the $300,000 range, Rick and I can do that. If we could restore something that's been cut. This was just one of the options that was brought up. You can or cannot do it. But as you know, people are our biggest resources. It's the biggest chunk of our budget. And so I have to put it out there as an option. The elected officials that get this benefit are 4 people, you know, so it's really not about you 4. It's more about the larger, the body that I'm considering full of people, which is probably how many people in MC? 100?
140.
140 folks out of our 613. So that's kind of where we're at. And we do ask a lot from them and we're going to ask more from them. And I think we've talked one-on-one each. Good managers means good people who can come work here and stay here. So if you want to take that $38,000 and you want to do that, I support this. But maybe we need to look at $38,000 instead of giving back to contingency and put it in employee engagement. Throw it back into employee engagement. And I guarantee you that we could also split that out through the departments evenly, or we can put it right in this budget and we can do something with $38,000 a year. So that was the only other thing I was thinking of, as opposed to putting a contingency. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'd like to comment, just in the sense that the county is a service business and you want to make your customers happy. Richard Branson always said that the way you make customers happy is you make your employees happy. So anything that makes people feel better about, I love working here. Well, I like working here, you know, that anything that does that increases their efficiency and effectiveness and their performance. And also keeps them from leaving.
Yeah.
So I'd like to add kind of why I bundled all this together and why I'm supporting this. So I think one of the things that we were talking about when this budget was being developed is we wanted to have a limited impact on staff, especially getting rid of staff, but also I think just having a limited impact on staff salaries and things like that. And I agree that this is actually, we are, you know, even though it's deferred comp, people are getting a cut if we go through with it as planned. So I think that and I genuinely, I had forgotten that this would include me when we were talking about this. This is not about the 1.5%. For me, at least, that I would receive from this. It's about the fact that we have 140 FTE that this is affecting. And I really think that we should do whatever we can to try and shield them from the folks that we've got from whatever budget deficits that we have. And this is an opportunity that we didn't have when the budget was being developed, because Rick was saying we feel more comfortable now. And I wouldn't have asked them to, you know, I don't want staff to have to take a cut if they don't have to. And we have this avenue to try and restore it for folks. And I have the motion all drafted up if we choose not to do this, but we still want to move that money towards NAEP. So like I have it all listed out there, but I really do think that I want to help our employees. And while we could put this in employee engagement, I know a lot, I feel like most people would prefer to have the money than to have us put it in employee engagement. And, you know, I don't have a lot more to say on it. I really think that if we can shield our employees from this, what it amounts to a cut, then I'd like to.
Did you send Mariah the?
I did.
Okay, are you working on getting in the chat?
I'm glad you asked. Oh, I'm sorry, I put it in the chat.
Yeah, please.
Well, I appreciate the discussion and I'm comfortable moving forward.
I just want to be refreshed on the.
You can read it a billion times if you
No,
like.
it's the deferred comp.
Deferred comps restores NAEP's vacancy rate and adds 500,000 to the shifts 500,000 out of the development fund into the general fund essentially through debt payment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 60,000.
And 60,000 more to contingency because that's what's left over from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the public's benefit, if we could share its screen so that instead of just putting it in the chat so that it can be shared so everyone can read it, that would be great.
Thank you, Chaz. Good idea. I think Mariah's working on that.
Where is it? Yeah, okay.
And if that, when we get to that point of we're there, we could stand at ease for a little bit and my staff and I can come together and we can just sort of everything that you have done here today, just sort of say, here's the adjustments. I mean, ultimately, based on what you've done so far, you've only increased the budget by the deflection program. Everything else is puts
Internal stuff.
So your increase in the budget is only going to change by the deflection at this point, but we can put all that out there for you just to make sure it's if you like. Or you could do it right now.
Well, we have the amendment that we have to get through first. The one that I just.
Yeah. But what are we doing about the amendment? Any more discussion?
I think we were just waiting to see it written out.
Do what?
For the people online.
Okay.
Well, I am for myself.
Well, you're online.
You are a people online.
I mean, I'm ready to vote on the amendment, I guess.
It's in the chat, is that correct?
No.
No. No.
If you just would like to open a Word doc and just paste it onto that Word document, that might work. Just to. Is
Yes.
Can we take a break, a quick break?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay.
okay. Recess for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you zoom in on that or increase the font size either way?
Okay, we're back meeting again.
During the break, staff had a requested change to this motion to add the words transfer for before debt payment, because to make it more specific, so in the on the screen in the fourth line, transfer toward transfer for debt payment, and then reducing transfer for debt payment from the general fund. So I ask just unanimous consent for the amendment to the language change.
Yes,
Yes.
not just a seconder.
Yeah.
It,
Anyway,
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask a few clarifying questions?
Yes,
So on the third line says comma, by reducing development fund contingency. By reducing it by how much?
the same amount.
the same amount. It's the 500,000.
It seems like we could add that, which would make it more clear. And then there's the comma toward debt payment. I think the comma probably can be removed. I'm just trying to interpret what's written.
Which column did you say could be removed?
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, was wondering.
The one right before. So I'll just keep, so. The one between contingency and toward.
We didn't even want toward there, did we?
Oh, shit.
Chad, I mean, are you okay if we have staff clean up the grammar? Or do you feel that
Well, I'm
it's,
trying to, I just think it's not clear. And then the other point that's not clear to me is reducing contingencies from across the budget by 326,785. Do you need to specify where those contingencies are? Or is it just equal percentages, or how does that work?
Let me maybe, if you don't mind, make a thought or recommendation on how to maybe simplify this, because you got a lot of different things that you're doing all in one thing, and maybe we bullet this a little bit to make it simplified, if that's all right. So maybe start with that your move to allocate. The motion is to make the following. To make the following adjustments to the proposed budget. And then we say each one, so first, increase the capital development funds. Again, it's almost like I need time to play with this language as opposed to doing it on the fly, but basically, go increase capital development fund transfers by 500 and reduce the contingency by the equal amount. That's one action. And then you just take them one by one, because I think you're just trying to say a whole lot of stuff all in one place. I can interpret it. I mean, so I don't have a problem with, the language, so we can absolutely interpret exactly what you're trying to do here. But I'm just trying to help for the ease of, if that makes more sense.
staff understands that I'm comfortable with that, but again, I'm one person.
That's right.
I'm comfortable moving forward. If people aren't comfortable, I can create a bullet list motion. And
Well, we can have staff do that for you too, if that's your prefer. So it's not on you. Debbie can work on this right now and have it in 5 minutes if that's what you wish. Or like I said, we know what you're trying to do here. So the language doesn't have to be perfect. It's really more your guys' comfort.
Why don't you?
I just feel like in terms of transparency, that for the public's benefit, for my own benefit, it would be a good idea to start the motion with the end result and then bullet point how you're achieving it.
Commissioner Shepherd, it's your motion, and so you can propose it any way you want.
Yeah, that's fair. If we want to, I mean, we just got back from recess, but if we want to take a 5-minute recess, I can make it happen and work with you if you want.
If that will make everybody feel better, then yes, let's do that. Let's get the motion and wait on it.
That's the year.
Okay, we're back again.
All right,
Where our audio still muted.
I thought she just unmuted us.
Oh. Okay.
I withdraw my first motion.
I am okay with that.
Okay.
You need to withdraw your second.
I withdraw my second. Thank you.
I move to amend,
No, you're not amending. Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're amending them.
I move to amend the proposed budget as follows. Increase transfer to debt service fund and building development reserve fund by $500,000. Decrease contingency in building development reserve fund by $500,000. Decrease transfer to debt service fund and general fund by $500,000. Increase personnel costs in general fund in NAPE by $200,243 reduction for the reduction of vacancy factor. Increase personnel costs in general fund across multiple programs by $238,951 to add back the 1.5% deferred compensation for management and confidential positions. Increase general fund contingency by $60,806. Increase personnel costs in multiple other funds by $326,785 to add back the 1.5% deferred compensation for management and confidential positions. Decrease contingencies in multiple other funds by $326,785.
Is there a second
Second.
discussion?
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. This is very helpful.
If there's no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Anything else? Any other amendments? No?
I have a potential amendment. I would propose exempting members of the budget committee from deferred comp additions.
So the three of us,
Right.
essentially, because not applying to you.
We're not getting that.
Is it easiest for us to do that here, because then we get to money, or for us, if, like, what would be the easiest way to accomplish that?
Would just be done through payroll.
So, so I think maybe the easiest way to do that would be to maybe include in the previously approved amendment with the exception of
Not doing that.
elected or the Board of Commissioner members. I don't know what that computes to in terms of exact amounts, so, and I guess I hesitate because I know the citizen members of this by-year charter approves the salaries for all electeds, but that's the salary. As not, they don't make any decisions in relation to the 3%. So I think, you know, we could change the motion to the up to, and if you want to exempt and say for all management and unrepresented employees, but not including elected officials, or not collecting the Board of Commissioners. I don't know if you want to speak for the sheriff, since he would be included in this as well. So that would be one way to accomplish it.
Why can't the Board of Commissioners just, I mean, without changing the amendment at all, why can't the Board of Commissioners just themselves say, we don't want to participate in this as long as the budget for this biennium, or as long as the budget situation is tight? As opposed to making it a part of the,
Yeah, I guess
Or for
that,
just this biannual, I think. Just.
yeah.
I mean, you could make a motion to exempt the board.
Different.
Okay, if I may, I don't feel like we should make a motion about this. I think because I don't want to impose it upon a commissioner who can't afford this, right? This is I know I'm the primary wage earner in my household. I mean, I'm the only one in my household. But I'm looking at this and I'm willing to withhold 1.5%, at least for the first year, and to see where we are in the second half of this biennium. And I don't want to force any of the other commissioners to do that. And because, you know, we actually get paid less than some of our management confidential folks who we're increasing this for. So it is awkward. It's an awkward position to put ourselves in to vote on our own salary, but I also don't want to impose a reduction of that upon someone who isn't comfortable with that. So I appreciate what Curtis was saying, like we could just
do it.
just voluntarily do it. That way we don't have to come back and make a big deal of restoring it at a later date. It is there if we are wanting to take it, right? Because it's a voluntary match, correct?
I
Like
think,
that's,
you know, again, any employee at any point in time can volunteer their salary. I mean, you basically be just saying that you're.
You just
you're
call up your
exempt- you're
payroll
asking
and
to
say-
exempt yourself from this and I think that's a personal decision.
yeah. So I'm willing to do that for the year of the fiscal year of 25, 26.
Yeah.
And then look at where our budget is next year, because I meant what I said. I wasn't thinking about myself when I did this. It's about our staff. It's about my staff. But again, I'm a full-time employee here. So it is a benefit that the commissioners earn by being full-time employees. So I will make that personal decision to reduce by 1.5, and I'll call it payroll, I guess, on Monday. Is Monday? Yeah.
Does it have to be in the amendment or? could we
No,
just-
well, and this is
Yeah.
also just, I mean, if this is just a board decision, then we can also punt this to
Right.
that
Fun
future
to
meeting.
your next meeting, right?
I would prefer not to mess with Dave's wonderful.
The very finely tuned
Yes.
that we just voted on. So it's done. Yeah.
Although you did take out one of my favorite comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay,
I did have one actual question. I'm sorry. Like this was all the way back to when we were talking about the slideshow earlier, if I may.
sure.
$6 million for facilities sell off or what, not sell off.
Yeah,
6 million for one-time sale or lease of assets.
yeah.
So I wanted to try and get an understanding of where you got the $6 million figure came up. How much the OLCC that we're already been talking about, how much is that going to pay into it? How much have they committed to it?
Yeah.
Try and dig into that.
So it is obviously an estimate, and we did meet with, had Paul meet with a appraiser in town in terms of some of our facilities and obviously I'm looking at various areas that we could leverage. I think, again, I'm being very conservative. I mean, Paul said, 15 million, it's like, okay, that's way too much. So trying to be a little bit more conservative, but basically I was looking at the Board of Commissioners office. I was looking at the annex. I was considering the Alcee Clinic. I'm considering the Cascade Apartments. I'm considering the Humphrey Hoyer building. And then I'm also accounting for areas that we can leverage, like you mentioned, the OLCC in terms of using that. And so any of those rentals we're looking at as a way to leverage. So that was just sort of a general, and then I took about 70% of what we came up with an estimate. So it was roughly almost 10 million.
Okay, I'm just saying if this is a sale of assets, that's a lot of sale over a 2-year period.
It's not just sell.
Okay.
It's meant to be a enterprise approach to leveraging everything, because part of this is also part of our goals. You remember, Board of Commissioners is the right sizing of, there is opportunities we have to do rental space in
lease
all of our buildings. So we're going to look at this as a comprehensive approach. And it was also the reason that I specifically said for any of the proceeds for this, it's reserved. So this isn't a budget that counts on. Obviously, if we fail, then our reserves aren't going to grow to the level that I would like them to. But at the same time, So it's not putting your budget at risk into your operation.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I believe we have plenty of opportunities, and I think as, you know, we've heard in some of the public remarks is that, you know, you can put those things back on the tax roll.
Yeah, and my thoughts on this, I do think we are overextended on buildings. You know, that's a prevailing opinion, it seems, amongst the budget committee and the commissioners and staff, right? That's what it seems like, is that we have, we have empty buildings that are just kind of sitting around. When we determine what we do with these, I want to be sure that if we are thinking about renting, that we'll be making more money renting them than we would if they were back on the tax rolls. Because, and you know, that's a consideration as well. And then if we sell them to another, another governmental entity or anything like that, well, they're also not back on the tax roll. So that's something to consider as well. But I appreciate that helps me understand where the 6 million is coming from, because it seems like it could be an arbitrary number, but you said you had this
Yeah,
assessment.
again, I'm not going to tell you it's perfect. I mean, there was some method to go, and like I said, talk to a local appraiser to try to get an idea what some of the value is around these. Also thinking about some of our leveraging opportunities, and I agree with you 100% in terms of before we go out and rent. I think that would be sort of, you know, if we're not able to be successfully, how do we leverage it while we are holding on to it? I was thinking more like what we're doing with OLCC of the Avery building. I mean, we need that building, right? To still do the things that are necessary, and then be able to leverage the parks to rent out some of those spaces. I do want to just make one other additional thing that is important, and I know the undersheriff is here as well. I think we all believe that there could be an opportunity as we do this right sizing to think about the law enforcement building and where it's at right now. And again, back to all of our points, I mean, is there a place where I thought about a new law enforcement building, but we have a Sunset building, we have a new Barbara Ross building, and we have an Avery building that, again, as you already alluded to, has pockets of space. Is there a place? Again, I'm not saying it can happen, but is there a place that we consider law enforcement in a different location, let's say, i.e. the Sunset building? It's possible. It really is, but we need some work around that. But that opens up the idea of adding one more building to what I had just mentioned, and that being the law enforcement building. And I know that's been
Yeah, that was super complicated. I'll leave it, yeah. Because of the joint partnership with the city and they wanting their own building, and that's more than I want to get into today, but I appreciate the understanding of how the 6 million came to be.
a lot of efficiency opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you raising that question. At some point, we need a comprehensive plan. I mean, we've done some buildings, and because of that, we have space over here. Several places. Well, how can we best utilize that? And I'll put a plug in for being careful with the whole BOC. I think until the crisis center is up and running, and because that basically we use the whole space for the building. And I hadn't had a chance to read it, but I just saw some email about parking, what staff's gonna do for parking, and it's not even open yet. And so, but whatever we do, I would hope we have a pretty good plan, facilities plan in place before we start making decisions where we lose options. But appreciate the effort in seeing what different buildings might be worth, and what are they worth to us, what would they to keep them, what be worth if we leased or sold a particular building. And an ongoing discussion.
Okay, back to the main motion. With its four or five amendments, 4 amendments, okay. So any further discussion?
Maybe just for the record, a clarification, remember which amendment number, but it was the work crew one. I'll call, again, we simplified this in terms of freeing up the general fund to support the sheriff's office. I assume the intent of doing that is for the benefits of parks.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Just to make, again, because it's not a transfer from parks like it has been. We've just stated a general fund appropriation, but I assume that was your intent by basically, yes, we're making that program whole, but it is for the benefit of parks. So Jesse would still get support from the sheriff's office for that. I
Oh,
know
gotcha.
that that's their intent, but
Okay.
because of the way, the mechanics of the way we're doing it, rather than it coming from a payment from parks as a general fund appropriation, the sheriff's office, I assume your intent is for that service to remain. It still gives, and I think it's probably an ongoing conversation you want to have about, is there other options down the road to consider, but this at least ensures the program stays intact and we still are able to provide Jesse the support he needs in Nate. That was your intent, correct? Just want to make sure.
All in favor? Say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Chaz,
Getting there. Aye.
thank you. Okay, with that. I was not ready to say we're adjourned. First, I wanted to say,
Can I ask a
Yes.
question really quick? You made an amendment. I don't know anywhere, did you ever state the total new budget? Because remember, the deflection program is the only thing that increases the budget. So did you make a motion that said, I move to approve a budget of X?
So I moved the original amount
Okay,
and then I moved to increase the budget by X.
gotcha.
So
Is that, so we're all good? So we had the original motion of the 539, you had the motion to
Yes,
increase, so
amendment.
put it all together. Excellent. Okay, just want to make sure. I don't want to miss anything procedurally.
I got it, $540,270,492.
All right.
thanks. Mariah, thank you very much for all your support through this. And would you please pass on to everyone else who was here over the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, nights, weekends, doing this too. Thank you very much for all your help. And you guys too.
Thank you.
Cody, I hope you have a lot of fun. We'll be back in 2 years.
Let's do it again.
Chaz, goodbye.
And as I
Thank you,
mentioned to the
Commissioners.
cities and budget committees, we will be talking here in the next few weeks because we do need to take some actions on the electeds that you guys are empowered to for this biennium. So we'll be talking to you probably in July.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Not going anywhere.
Nothing else? Meeting?
Thank you.
Thank you.